Hey folks, my name's Kevin and it's time for some very special Knife Nerdy because today we're celebrating 2 whole years of doing this channel. And that is just a really surreal sentence to be able to say out loud. But just like last year, we're going to celebrate by doing a complete state of the collection video. We're going to be going through all of my knives. But the thing is, when I did this last year, I said I anticipated my knife collection looking pretty different this year. I expected to sell the majority of my knives because I just had way more than I could possibly use, certainly far more than I need. But the reality is not only did it not get smaller, it actually got considerably larger. We're at that point in collecting where I have to kind of dig through boxes and like rummage through shelves just to even account for all of my knives. And I still am sure I missed a few, but I'm pretty sure this is roughly a 98, 99% of all my knives. And I counted 127 knives. So A, this is going to be a very long video. And B, I think it's fair to say I have a problem. Maybe I'm a hoarder. Before we go through them all, I also want to just give a quick update on the channel because I've got some really cool stuff coming up. If you're just here for the sharp things, don't worry, there'll be timestamps down below. You can skip ahead. But yeah, part of the reason why it feels really surreal to say that I've been doing this for 2 whole years is that for the last 6 months or so, I honestly haven't really been doing this much at all. My life has just been absurdly busy for the last 6 months, and I haven't had really any time to breathe, let alone have fun. But I had a couple false starts. I thought I was ready, but I'm finally at the place where I have time for the channel again, and I'm so freaking excited. There's some cool stuff coming up, in part because even though I haven't had the time to edit and post stuff, I have been filming videos. I'm fortunate enough that I've been on a lot of pass-around groups, and so I can't hold those up for very long. There's people waiting on them, and I've also had some very generous people send some incredibly cool stuff my way. One of the things that we've got coming up is a bunch of prototypes of really cool knives from different makers from a couple of different videos of this. I think they're going to be really, really exciting. We also have some wild stuff. Like a friend sent a box of 25 mystery knives. So I've been filming that as kind of just a blind unboxing. I don't even know what's coming. I'm only halfway through the box, and the first half has been really, really cool so far. And that's going to be fun. Also some weird stuff coming up. I bought knifenerdery.com. I don't know how long it's going to take me to actually have content up there, but I've got a couple of ideas of things that I think would only really work in a website format. I'm really excited to get those, build those, and then share them with you. Also, we have a giveaway video coming up. I've said that a couple of times already in past videos because it was meant to be a 3K subscriber video, and I at this point I think I'm at 3.3K, so it's long overdue. But part of the reason for that is I didn't have time, and part of that is that I was kind of gathering up what all I can give away, and this is going to be a really, really cool giveaway. I think you guys are going to be really, really excited. Another really cool thing coming up for the channel, I'm going to Blade Show for the first time. I am so excited, but also a little bit terrified. I've never done anything like this. Like, I did go to conventions growing up. I am a huge nerd. I was going to like Star Trek conventions and comic conventions with my dad and my brother. But I've never been to a knife show like this size. I've been to one knife show ever. Last summer, there was the Pacific Northwest Custom Invitational, and that was such a cool experience. But it was a tiny little show, and they're all custom. That's the other thing. Like, I've never been to anything where the giant names you've always heard of are there, and there's thousands and thousands of people. It's going to be overwhelming, but I cannot wait. If you are going, please, if you run into me, please stop and say hi. I would love to meet you. I'd love to nerd out. If you don't spot me anywhere, there's a good chance I might be at the TRM booth. Marianne has invited me to hang out with them for a little bit and just nerd out. So I love those guys to death. So it'll be really, really fun. If you can't find me, you might find me there. There's a whole lot of other fun stuff coming up, but yeah, let's get started and let's go check out the knives. Okay, so it's been a few days since I filmed that intro. Actually, I promptly got interrupted. And in that very short period of time, even more knives have come in. I also unearthed some that I didn't know about. So the total we're looking at right now is, I think, 139. And that is frankly a problem. I think I have a problem. But let's get started, and let's start off with just some odds and ends. This is the oldest knife in my collection, both in terms of, well, no, not in terms of production date. I will find an even older one when we get to some of the cool mechanism stuff later. But this is the oldest in terms of my ownership. I got this in, I think, 4th grade as a gift from my dad. This was originally a corporate gift for him. It had his company's emblem right there. It was something like, you worked here for a certain number of years, you get a pocket knife. I learned in preparation for this video that this model is actually called the Climber. And I have no idea why. Nothing about this strikes me as being climbing related. But this knife gave me 7 stitches in my right eyebrow. And that's the thing that somehow earned me this knife. And so I've had it ever since. And yeah, still a fantastic little knife. Let's get these out of the way. These are both garbage. So this is the Gerber Sumo. Let's see, can I, aha! Nailed it. It's a big boy. I mentioned these in my last video round. These were both part of an attempt to get the absolute cheapest crossbar lock that I could for a video that I never actually made. I still want to do it. It's a video all about how the axis lock and crossbar locks in general actually work from a geometry perspective. What subtle changes would you make in the design here that actually make an impact? But I also wanted to modify one in a way that I kind of still might try. So I wanted something I knew that I could potentially ruin. Man, I hate this knife. It just is like a wobbly piece of crap. But I also can't disassemble it. I mentioned in the last time around that I stripped quite a few T8 Weha bits, and that's hard to do. I also torched the G10 here, trying to loosen up any kind of Loctite in here. I can't for the life of me get this apart, so can't modify a knife if you can't open it up. This one here is by a no-name Amazon brand called Free Tiger. It's, you know, you gotta love those, just kind of put two words together, put the logo. Man, that tiger definitely looks free. This is one of those knives that is obviously trying to be reminiscent of the Benchmade Bug Out, but it's not an outright clone of Benchmade Bug Out, and that's why I felt okay buying it. I don't like buying... I wouldn't buy one of those knives that just takes like an Ontario rat and slaps an Axis bar lock on it and says, hey, we're selling this in IP theft. Anyway, let's just get these out of the way. This. Okay, so I own one other EDC fixed blade, and that'll come up later because it's part of a different collection portion thing. This has not gotten anywhere near as much use as I kind of thought it would, but the bigger thing is that it just cleans up well, so that's why it looks brand new. But this is the BMKT Field Spec EDC1. So that's the production version from Best Tech of the EDC1 knife from BMKT. This one's in the sheep's foot blade, and I still absolutely adore this knife. It is a great EDC knife. I just find myself never really reaching for EDC knives in the fixed blade format. So I didn't know if it would take hold in my life. It hasn't. Maybe it will someday. This is a delightful knife. This is one of the ones that came in the time period since I filmed that intro, and this is super freaking exciting. This is a completely handmade knife from my friend Nick Rogers. You might know him as Niche Designs. I've been in a group chat with him for a long time, and he's just an incredibly cool dude. Super duper knowledgeable. He's one of those people that makes licensed designs. So he has quite a few designs at this point with different, and recently he started making his own kitchen knives and some just kind of EDC knives too. This is so freaking cool. So let's pull out his little tag here. This just has K-tip kitchen utility knife. It doesn't have a name there. So K-tip, that's a reference to Kirisuke. That's a type of Japanese blade shape used in the kitchen. And when you say K-tip, you're talking about this little notch down right there. This thing is insanely thin. It's about 7 thousandths behind the edge, and it hits like 30 thousandths all the way up here. It is just wild thin, and this needle tip is absurd. The balance point on this is perfection right up here at the front, and everything about this is completely handmade. He ground everything, cut out everything, did all of the handle work. It is so freaking cool. And check this out. It's in a steel called 26C3. If you've never heard of that, that's because it's not a super famous steel. It's a scalpel steel and like a razor steel. And so it's meant to be hard at very, very thin geometries, which is why he chose it. And look at that hardness, 65.6. Holy freaking moly. You can tell this is already picking up a little bit of color here on the edge. This is definitely not a stainless one. I've never owned a kitchen knife of my own that didn't have stainless as a design property. So it's going to be interesting seeing what kind of patina this develops, but I've already done some cutting with this in the kitchen in the last few days, and it is a freaking laser beam. Nick just nailed it on this. It's so freaking cool. Go check him out. Okay, next up we have one of my absolute favorite parts of my collection, the tiny knives, and I had to zoom out in order to try and fit this all on, and I even failed there. So there's actually a few things that would qualify here. My cutoff was to anything 2.5 inches and under, but they're going to show up in a later section, and well, it's just going to the way it's going to be. Let's get started with the Civivi Baby Banter. This is a Ben Peterson design, and this is, if you want a small 5th bucket knife and you have under $100, this is the best possible one you can get out of everything that I've ever experienced and the ones that I still own. This is the best budget 5th pocket knife of all time. It is just such a freaking delight. Hits way above its price point there. So this is the Spyderco Lil Native. This is a sprint run in S90V. I am going to at some point replace this with the Warncliffe version that they advertised at SHOT Show like freaking 2 years ago and finally dropped. But I kind of don't want it in S30V. I don't have any problem with S30V, but I just, I'm sure they will at some point do a cool version. I might get that anyway and just swap on some cool scales for it. This is the Bestech Mini Goblin. I absolutely hate this knife. I still have it out of laziness. It just has a lot of little things that bug me. I picked it up because people said it has some of the best like 4-finger grip ergos on a 5th pocket knife, and it does, I guess. But you know what? So do a lot of these things, and I just kind of hate it. But segue into some really cool knives. These are the Bestech Tulips. So I've got 3 different versions of the Bestech Tulip here. This one is a full-fledged frame lock. This one is a double detent, just there you go, slippy joint kind of guy. And this one, the tiny guy, is a budget version that's done as a liner lock. And I gotta tell you, if you have a very small amount of money to spend, this is an absurdly useful knife for a very small amount of money. It's very, very well done. Bestech nailed this. And if you are considering, for example, the Civivi Kiwi, these are very, very comparable, and this is wildly better done. I got these in part because I was going to do as another double detent. I got these in part because I was going to do a full explainer video on how double detents work, and kind of for better or worse, that craze of double detents has passed. It's clearly a fad. If you guys would still like to see a video all about the different ways that people create a double detent, what that actually means, and from like a physics perspective, how they're doing the locking, how they're making it harder to close than it is to open, stuff like that, I could still make that video. Let's move up to our Voxnaes collection. So up here we have the Blade HQ Vox Dapper. That's, I think, honestly, maybe still the only Blade HQ branded knife. It's a collaboration with Jesper Voxnaes, obviously. Here's his little bomb logo. From like an aesthetics perspective, this is just not a me knife. I don't love big bellies. I don't love clip points. But this knife is so freaking cool because of the way that this flipper tab is designed. It's this weird forward-facing flipper tab that then completely hides and pushes the lock bar up above it. So it looks almost like a compression lock, but it still is a liner lock from a kind of physics perspective. But the result is it just has the most amazing flick because you have so much contact with this flipper tab, and you are able to do like really good force right here. You're able to push really far, and your finger is able to stay with it the entire way. It just is an amazing snap of a knife. Moving down, Jesper and Jens Anso created the Giant Mouse Ace Riv, and this is by far one of the best small knives ever made. It has true spectacular 4-finger grip ergos, even on a small knife, has some of the best middle finger flicking action you'll find, especially on a small knife. This knife is just delightful, one of my all-time faves. Moving down here, we have the Urban EDC Copita. This is a Jesper Voxnaes design that he did in collaboration with Urban EDC. It's their knife. I've honestly never used this because I got this in and something else distracted me because I got it in the exact same time, and I just kind of forgot that I've had it for a really long time. So it's delightful. There's nothing bad about it at all. It is a fantastic knife. I just don't need it. Let's keep going. So this is a back to Giant Mouse. This is the Ace Nibbler. So it's kind of the baby brother of this, although I got to talk to Jesper Voxnaes and asked him if this was intentionally meant to be a smallest version, and he said that it actually started as a different kind of design from the get-go, but this is, for all intents and purposes, the micro version, and it is a really interesting knife for a couple of reasons. It manages to make like a 3-finger grip feel good, which is just wild. But this is also a budget knife in N690 and aluminum being done by Riot, and who the heck does that? How did they get them to do that? The short answer is they said they just asked. Like, they said they didn't pull any kind of weird stuff with having to do more, higher production run or anything like that in order to get them to agree to do something in the budget space. And they just said, hey, will you do a budget knife? And they said, yeah. So that's really cool. What are we going? I already mentioned those. Let's come up. Let's skip the TRM section for now. This is me cheating. So this is not my knife. This is also a prototype. It's just a loaner, but I will 1000 absolutely % get this when it comes out. So I'm just including it here because it's going to be there. This is the Devo Knives Nip. And this is just a spectacular little knife. It has fantastic flick, fantastic ergos, it's easy to thumb flick, and it has another really, really well-designed flipper tab, doing a very similar thing as this actually, where it's leaning far forward and allows you to maintain really good traction and just has such a good action. I love this knife. It's coming out soon. We'll look for a full video coming up on this. This is the Berg Blades Mini Slim, an absolute nugget knife. I don't think I've ever carried this. I don't think I ever will. I just like that it exists and it makes me happy. Okay, this here is honestly, I think, the single best fifth pocket knife ever made. Honestly, it's expensive, and so that's the big thing that's going to limit it for people. It's also hard to get because it's not, it's sold out, and they're not going to always have this in stock. But this is the Urban EDC Baby Barlow, designed by Justin Lundquist, and it has just the, look at that, for a blade that light, that's madness. It has the best top flippery. There's several knives that have this style of centered mohawk kind of thing that Justin does, and this one is just perfection. It is such a delightful knife. Okay, coming down here, this is the Spyderco McBee. Can I flick it? Oh, come on, come on. Aha! Technically can flick it. This is, I think, one of the best box cuttery knives of all time because it feels fantastic in your hand in several different grips. Perfect for this kind of thing. And the big thing is that the blade, which is basically a utility knife blade shape, is angled downward from the handle. And so it's primed for cutting into boxes. It just works so freaking well. It's just not fun to open, in part because they hide the access to this, and it just has an exceptionally weak one. detent there. Now, this is the honeycomb version that McNeese offers as a customization in his own website. I would absolutely adore to get a true Killer Bee custom that this is based on. So if I ever see one of those pop up on the secondary market, or if anyone out there watching has one they want to get rid of, hit me up. Let's move over here and finally talk about my TRM collection. I'm a huge nerd, so obviously I have to have a whole bunch of nerds. This is the original version of the TRM nerd that has the thumb pad, and you can flick this. Can I flick it right now? Nope. Aha! So you can technically flick this, but it's just hard to do. So I went and got one modded by Knife Modders. So this is the OG whole nerd, the one that kind of started this, because I went and got this not modded by Knife Modders, realized that this is just so much better. It's just so easy to use that I then flooded Marianne's DMs saying, hey, you need to make this a full hole. And that ended up being the holy version of the nerd, and it is just a supermarket improvement. Then, of course, when they came out with tie scales, I just bought a full-on additional tie nerd because look how gorgeous that is. But do I really need 4 of these? I don't know. The reality is I like having these for historical purposes. It's just cool for me, and I like having the rosewood so much that I kind of just am willing to have 2. Okay, moving here. This is another one of the best small 5th pocket knives of all time. It's just in the premium space. This is the Peña X-Series Micro Apache, and so it's a really small version of the full-size Apache, which is already a small knife. This particular one is in Lava Flow Fat Carbon, was a Crane's Cutlery exclusive, and that made it even a little bit more expensive, but it is just delightful. And some people worried that it'd be hard to open, but it has some of the best flicking action for that kind of reach over or across the top. Oh, so freaking good. And of course, still works like that really, really well. Okay, coming down here. This is the Gerber Mini Ridge. The Ridge was Gerber's, I guess, answer, some would say ripoff to the CRKT KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So KISS. And the big difference between the KISS and the Ridge is that the KISS has a more standard frame lock style where the lock bar is here at the bottom, and on the Ridge, it's this centerpiece. So that actually does make it different. I don't know if that makes it cooler or not. This is also one of the oldest knives in my collection. Technically from a production year standpoint, because this is probably 20-something years old, but also because of the fact that I got this when it came out. So this is one of the knives that I bought way, way long ago. And it's just kind of been in my collection ever since because it is cool. I don't know. I'm not a super huge fan of the idea of using or carrying one of these one-sided uniframe knives, but there's something neat about them. So I definitely will keep this around. Okay, let's move on to my 2 favorite tiny knives ever, just from the kind of perspective of, oh my freaking God, these exist, okay? Oh, come on. Okay, so this is the Ferrum Forge Micro Fortis and the Ferrum Forge Micro Stinger, and these are absolute marvels because they are real. They are real. These are real knives. These are Nitro V blades with a freaking mirror polish. They've got full titanium frame locks on here. They've got ceramic detent balls and ceramic ball bearings, and there's the tiniest little caged ball bearings in there. These knives are real knives that just happen to be stupidly, hilariously tiny, and very few things make me happier than pulling these out, flicking it open, and just bursting into laughter every single time. So, Ferrum Forge, thank you for having an amazing sense of humor and pouring all of the energy into getting real versions of micro knives made. Accidentally completely skipped this one. This is the TRM Viator. This is an exceptionally cool knife. It is not something that I'm going to carry because I don't really like slip jointy knives, but this is implementing slip jointiness in a very, very cool way. This is the integral frame slip joint backlocky thing that Les Halpern created over a decade ago at this point, where it's using the frame itself to act as a spring bar. And there's other knives, we'll see one on this video, that is doing that same kind of concept of using the frame itself as the back spring. But these guys are doing it in a different way where they're relying on lateral bending instead of radial bending of the bar. We'll talk about that when we get there. And it's just also done in a really, really clever way where they've got a half stop right here. So this little tiny nub is acting as a half stop. And what's really, really cool about it is that the geometry of this hole, it's not just like a semicircle. It is a ramp on one side and a wall on the other. And what that means is that it's easy when you get to this half stop to keep going into the open position. It's easy to open it, but it's hard to close it. And that's what allows you to push and get a solid, good snap and not have it close on your hand. It's a very clever use of small little geometry to make this just a really freaking cool knife. Okay, this next section is, I guess I'm going to call production knives. The reality is a lot of the knives in this video are going to be production knives. So really this is just production knives that I don't have a better categorization for. And we have the full gamut from high-end things to budget stuff. So let's get started. This is the Civivi Elementum, obviously, but this is a Frankamentum. So this is the Geberscher Rosewood scales mixed with an S35 VN blade version. So I combined two here to make what I guess is like the optimal version of the Civivi Elementum. I've been keeping this around for a really long time, just kind of remind me of what budget knives are and also to have as a reference for the channel, but I think this knife is kind of past, like everyone knows it already, so I don't know, there's better knives I could use at this point. So I don't know, it is still a good little knife. Coming over here, this is the Civivi Stylum. This is a Ferrum Forge design, and this is one of those ones that I got to check out because it is a double detent that's doing it slightly different from other folks, and it has this really interesting wrap over attached on the inside clip. It's not a fantastic knife from a using perspective because it has almost no closing detent, but if you were to hold it with this little kind of choke up spot, you're not going to be able to close down your finger anyway. Let's keep going. So this is the Artisan Mini Arion. This is a Cerberus Knives design. It's a really cool knife. I just don't really need it because I don't need budget knives, because I don't need knives because I got a million knives, but I don't have anything to say bad about it. It is a fantastic little budget knife. If you are in the market, this will do really well. Coming up, okay, so this is a knife that has sentimental value to me because this is my first kind of real knife, my first foray into buying higher end knives. This is the 20CV full G10 version of the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. I keep it around because it is, like I said, it's got that kind of first in my collection place to me. Also, it's nice to have something from Mel Pardue in the collection, RIP. And then also this is just a really, really good kind of beater knife. It has seen a lot. It has really great ergonomics, as the name dang well better imply. And so this is the kind of knife where if I need a knife that I'm not afraid to do practically anything with, then this is going to be what I pick up. Next up, another knife that has a sentimental value to me. This is really cool. This is the Tucson TS 121, I believe. And this was actually gifted to me by a friend, a guy named Jake, not Bearded Gear Jake, a different Jake. He's an incredibly cool guy up in Alaska. And he just sent this my way and said, here, I don't know what to do with this. And I figured you might get some use out of it. He said, I can do literally whatever I wanted. I could sell it if I wanted, but this is actually a really pretty dang good knife. And so This was also my first time getting to experience anything from Tucson, so it was a very interesting experience, but I also just use this all the time because it's actually a pretty damn good knife. Yeah, so huge thanks to Jake. Jake will come up on the channel again at some point because, well, a couple other things. He's lent me some knives and he also nerded out real hard with me on magnets for the Factor. We'll get to that later. Okay, what do we got here? This is a knife that I actually wasn't planning on putting in this collection. No, that's fine. This is the Kubi Pike. This is a Parsons Bladework design. It's honestly just kind of fantastic and a really beautiful little knife. And so I got this because I got a really good deal on this through White Mountain Knives. I don't know, I got it for something like 60% off. It was insane. But this knife was my attempt to kind of see what Kubi does. I've just never really experienced them much. And this is their attempt at a higher end knife. So this is full titanium scales, but it does have a steel lock bar. Honestly, for this kind of thing where you want to keep it really thin, you don't have a thick enough bar to have a lock bar insert, I think that's exactly the right choice. This is very impressive, and so this showed me that Kubi can do some really cool stuff. Next up, we've got the Mote. This is a knife that a lot of people thought were going to be a lot bigger. This is an O-stop Hell design. This just barely didn't make it into my tiny knife criteria because it's like 2 3/4 inches. I have never used this knife because I just don't need it, but I just really like the look of it, but it'll probably make the chopping block at some point. I'm going to save that one. Actually, no, screw it. This is the Northerm Skaha 2. So this is a production knife, but it's like a father-son tiny team up in Canada production knife. And so the quality here is just spectacular. The action is, it's amazing. It's got such a good snappy detent, in part largely because they have a really cool kind of flattened detent ball. This is a version that's old enough that it actually is a detent ball, but they switched to having this kind of nub thing that they can do. And it just has such incredibly little friction. And it's a really cool knife. So sticking with small manufacturers then, let's go here. This is the Tactile Rockwall and Rockwall Original with the flippers. We've got the thumb stud and the regular version. I've never used either of these knives, honestly. This one had lock failure problems that I had to send back for, and this one had the detent ball fall out on me in the unboxing video. They fixed both right away, but by the time they came back to me, I just kind of put them in my drawer and moved on. But, people love them, so whatever. I felt a little bad about just how cavalierly I was talking about these, and I don't want to come across as disrespectful. The truth is, I think this flipper tab version is honestly a great little knife. Fantastic. No one really cares about this, though. I don't know if they even make the flipper version. Everyone cares about this. And this is, some parts about this are truly spectacularly done. It is true. It has spectacular action. I just can't get over this little part here. I hate this. I hate this. It doesn't need to be like this. This is a manufactured problem. They could make this be a regular swoop, and then it wouldn't look weird, and then you wouldn't have bad thumb stud access, and then you wouldn't have weird disengagement stuff going on right here. I don't know. The reality is, when I got this back, even after they had fixed the detent ball, because it's fully deep engagement and there's such bad access to the thumb studs here, I could barely open this reliably. I pretty regularly slid off it because you also there's no traction along the top. Anyway, point is I had to lighten the lock bar pressure to make this even something that I could flick on a regular basis. And at this point, this is tuned to the point where it's a great little knife now. You can pretty easily, reliably flick it, but I shouldn't have had to do all that work. And like I said, it's a manufactured problem. They just don't need to make it look like this, and they also would be able to fix the access problem itself. So, I don't know. The Focus Tactile were really nice. They fixed the problems with these immediately, so their customer service was great, but I probably shouldn't have had to have that in the first place. The QC should just be a little bit better. I don't know. They seem like really nice people, and I love the fact that they're pushing manufacturing here in the US the standards here are really good. Like the actual machining here is fantastic, and I love the folks. They're pen sensitive in too. So I wish the best of luck to Tactile, and I hope to see even more cool things from them in the future. This is the Kaiser G. So this is not the Kaiser Genie, it is the second evolution of that. The G and the Genie, the big difference between them is the G is heavily, like wildly milled out inside, thinner blade stock. So it's just a much thinner, lighter version, but it has the exact same profile. It also has this cool little micro milling if you get the titanium version, though it does come in carbon fiber. This is, I just think, a really cool looking knife, and it's a good example of a whole bunch of really cool stuff being done at a very low price point. Some people call this a budget Craig Brown Cortex. I have a Cortex. We'll pull that out. Maybe I'll put this back out when we get to that point. I think I get the connection, but you're definitely talking wildly different knives there. Okay, American production. Yeah, let's do that. So these are my 3 Spyderco smocks. This is a 20CV one that I have around because I kind of thought I might get it chopped, because I freaking love this one so much. This is chopped by Blade Chops on Instagram, and this one is very Warncliffy. It's still very pointy here, but a couple of folks, including Blade Chops now, have also done a really fantastic looking like sheep's foot version of this, and it's hard to get the 20CV sprint runs, because they only made one batch, and so there's what you can find on the market is all there will ever be. So I probably will get this chopped at some point. The problem with this one is that it has like effectively no detent whatsoever. And by contrast, this is the Knife Joy exclusive, this is M390. This one has a spectacular detent, and it's all just a matter of whether the detent ball fully engages or not. So it's just the size of the hole and whether or not it can go in. I freaking love this knife. At this point, the Spyderco smock is not news to anyone, but it is just, I don't know, I love it. It's a really cool knife, it has a wicked hollow grind. It has the like button post over Spyderco's compression lock thing, but the entire thing is inverted to make it right hand friendly. So it's just mechanically a really cool knife. It's also doing some wild stuff inside with a secondary stop pin and 2 detent balls and all sorts of weird stuff. So I love this from a oddball, but also it's a great knife perspective. But my favorite one really is this chopped one. Like I said, this is just such a fidget demon, and it is just like kind of the perfect size for me. So this is, I've heard Kevin makes smaller versions in his customs, but yeah, anyway, moving on. Lastly, we've got 2 different versions of the ProTech Malibu. This is the one that I got originally. I got this in one of those like back when it was impossible to get a Malibu drops, and I've never carried it because I eventually knew I was going to try and get the titanium one. I ended up selling the titanium one and never really doing anything with this one, but I got this one instead. I bought this off of a friend. This is the textured aluminum version, and this one has been reground by BGM to have just a little bit of a deeper grind. It's not a super deep hollow grind, but it is a hollow grind. And so this one I have used. It's not gotten a lot of use, but it's got the same kind of delightful action that the Malibu is known for, but this one has just a better grind, because that's honestly the one big true problem with the original version of the Malibu is there's just a little bit of a wedge. Ooh, that's fun though. Okay, now we're getting into one of the designer or brand specific subsections of my collection. So I decided to pair Monterey Bay Knives and Justin Lundquist together because Ray Laconico is known for super minimalist, and so is Ray, and so is Justin, so it just seems like a good pairing. Let's start over here with MBK. So this is, I think, the first MBK I got. This is the original double detent version of the Slayback, which is of course a play on the sway back handle shape and the fact that this is a freaking wicked blade. This is such a good user of a shape, and so when they came out with the flipper version, I picked one up immediately. This is done in that ZDP 189 and 420J2 blanket steel Sanmai construction, so it's got a really wicked edge here that just stays forever on the super hard ZDP. And so this is a knife that I have used quite a lot. I grab all the time from trying to do any kind of, I don't know, almost any kind of cutting the kind of guy I do, because this knife blade shape is just so freaking good for it too. I adore this, and so as a result I ended up picking up this one that is in the micarta, but I've never touched this because I have that one and I just grabbed that one instead. But it is cool how incredibly light this one is. I don't know, when I eventually do a purge, this will probably get got, but oh well. This is the EZC 1.5. So it's the halfway between the 1.0 and the larger one that was like was that one actually an integral or was it just a monoblock? Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is the micarta version, and this is a fantastic little knife. It has such an absurdly snappy action. It's so good. This one is, of course, wearing a CVV aftermarket deep carry clip because I can. And reality is Ray Laconico just hates deep carry for some reason. So I decided to put that on there and I just never taken it off. What do we have next? This is the mini old guard. This is, I think, just a stunningly beautiful design. I think this overall shape is just kind of design perfection. However, it is a thick enough knife and it's a washer action knife. And so I don't know, I don't need it, so I don't really use this one ever. Coming over here, like I said, minimalist design. We've got 3 different versions, one of which we've already technically seen, of Justin Lundquist doing something that he does really, really well, which is hiding the entire blade inside the handle. You can see that Ray likes doing that same kind of thing. This is the Kaiser Delorme. This is a not quite budget. It's just over $100, but it's kind of in the budget range. And for budget, it has just stupid action. It is the kind of thing where it will fall to your nail like a guillotine and then just fall of its own weight. And it's doing a version of this top flippery thing, but it's my least favorite of the 3. I know it looks so incredibly similar, but there's little differences here. One of the big ones is just how strong this detent is. Also just like how grippy or not grippy and what kind of grippy this like jimping here is. And so I find this to not be the most comfortable of the 3, but it is a fantastic knife. The only other problem with it is that it has a very shallow blade, of course, and a very just not an aggressive grind, so it's a little bit of a wedgie, but you can tell that with this blade style, it's definitely meant for utility cuts, and for that, it works perfectly fine. Coming over here, we have the Wii Escalon, and this I got for free, actually, because I participate in the Apex Pass-Around group as part of this channel, and sometimes they give away knives at the end instead of returning them to the manufacturer, and this is one that I actually just won. It's not a knife that I probably would have bought, because I don't typically go for this style of blade shape. This also comes in a double-edged looking, it's not a single edge, but it's a double-edged looking spear point, and this one of those 2 is definitely for me, but it's just a much pointier knife than I would normally go for, but the action on it is absolutely incredible. Like, this is so much easier to do that on, and the other thing that makes this really, really cool is this is a freaking G10 integral. Like, how many of those have you ever seen? And so I've never been able to take this apart because literally I can't. So in order to get at this lock bar here and everything, there's screws in there that I would need a micro L-shaped T6 for. I don't know. Putting this together in the factory must have just been a tiresome task, but it's a really, really cool minimalist design that I feel very honored to have won. And that is the segue into another one that already showed up. You can go back and watch the section in the Tiny Knives video if you want more on this, but this is one of the best tiny knives ever made and just a truly spectacular knife. This is the Justin Lundquist Baby Barlow from Urban EDC. I cannot say enough good things about this knife. It is amazing. Okay, sticking with the idea of knives from a single designer, or in the case of some of these, partnership. Okay, what we got here is Jens Onso and Jesper Voxnaes were applicable, but mostly Jesper Voxnaes, and then Bryce Alexander, aka Quiet Carry. Let's start off with the F5.5. This is a Urban EDC knife, and it is so, like, all of these are exclusive from them, but this one is especially exclusive from them, because look at this freaking Sagaiha. That is amazing. Man, the action of these is just so freaking good. Jesper Voxnaes nailed it with this. It's based on his custom F5, and this one's just a scaled version for the F5.5. I have 3 of these because did I mention that I have a problem? But man, they just get better and better on the action as they come. And so every time they release a new version of this, it is worth picking up. It is just so dang good. So then we're going to switch over to Jens Onso partnering with Jesper Voxnaes for some giant mouse stuff. We've got the Biblio here in the full tie. This is the flatter version. And it's kind of let's create our little, can I make room and can I do this? Yeah, let's do this. So there's kind of a family, if you will, of these designs. They aesthetically flow into each other from a size perspective. So yeah. So what? One of these is Jesper Voxnaes and the other ones are Jens Onso, and it's really kind of cool because you can see how much Voxnaes there is or how much Onso there is as you kind of go through this spectrum. And so these kind of swoops here, this kind of all this curve up, the degree to which this is flowy and this is not, shows you all the difference that you need to know between the two. And so it's just really cool seeing how much of each show up. We already talked about the Riv and the Nibbler in the Tiny Knives portion of the video, so you can go back and find those. The Biblio, which is where I was starting off, has pretty fantastic flipper action on this particular version. Some people have gotten ones that didn't work great. It also came in a much thicker micarta version, and I've heard that those ones didn't have quite as good of action. This knife honestly is fantastic, but you know, I almost never pick it up, largely because these hateful little teeth, as my friend says. But I talked to Jesper about this, and he freaking loves this kind of jimming and lock bars, and I absolutely hate it. So that's just agree to disagree kind of territory right there. Let's keep going. So this here is also something that showed up in the Tiny Knives video. That's the Copita from Urban EDC by Jesper Voxnaes. And yeah, It's another one of those ones that I got, and it is delightful. I have nothing wrong with it, but I just don't need it and haven't used it as a result. Okay, switch over. Oh, wait, no, I got this one. This one also showed up in the Tiny Knives video. So yeah, you can kind of just tell that Jesper Voxnaes clearly has a thing for tiny knives because so many of his already showed up in that section, but he also just has a thing for fantastic ergos and just a really cool aesthetic. And that's actually a pretty good segue into Bryce Alexander, aka Quiet Carry, because he also has just an exceptional eye for aesthetics and an exceptional eye for ergonomics. These knives have very small details like the directionality and size and positioning of these little chamfers here to make it so that this just locks your hand in. It's just a superb knife. This is the waypoint, and honestly, I think this is one of the single best EDC knives ever made, all time, period, full stop. I just go out and buy yourself ones. It's absolutely spectacular. Some people prefer the drift, and I get it. It's the aesthetic might be better for some people. Also, the ergonomics might be better for some people. He just, fills your hand a little bit more, even though they're both super duper thin, just from that extra height. I personally like them both a hell of a lot, and I just like this one a little bit more. This is my other EDC fixed blade. I got this one. This is the current. It's I got this to be like a camp cook knife because this is in LC200N, so it's basically completely rust proof. And this is designed to be like a boating knife for like cutting open fish. I'm planning on using it to be, I like the fact it's got a good amount of belly here to be able to do kind of rocking chopping cuts, and it has enough flat down there. So this is my, I got this over the winter, and I haven't gone camping yet, but this is going to be my camping food prep knife. And the ergos on it are just, yeah, unbeatable. Accidentally forgot to pull this guy out in that last section with Quiet Carry. This is the Quiet Carry IQ. There's now a large version of this. This is just a spectacular little EDC knife. It is definitely on the smaller side of things, but I can still get a full 4-finger grip. And the way that this rolls off at the back, yeah, this knife is just very, very well done and has a lot of little details that are thought out really, really well. But it's also where he started doing this pocket clip, which is a 5th access 3D milled clip that is also wraparound full deep carry. It's the best clip in the business, and nowadays he's doing this also on things like, the large version, but also things like the 9. Love to see it. Really, really cool knife. Sorry for dropping from the previous portion. Okay, by far one of my favorite portions of the collection, both in terms of the knives themselves and just the sentimental purpose to me. So this is the Three Rivers manufacturing portion, and TRM, man, I freaking love them. They are my favorite knife company. If you were here at the channel from the very, very beginning, you'll know that this is, I think, the knife that started it all, basically. I started making videos because I lucked into being one of the very first people to own this Shadow. And so I made a pretty long, full, like, small details overview kind of thing for this, for their Facebook group. And people said, hey, you need to post this to YouTube. And so Marianne herself is one of those people that told me I need to post to YouTube. And so this channel exists in very large part because of Marianne herself and the folks at TRM. But these knives are also just amazing. This is, by the way, the single best, like, heavier use but slicing use knife I've ever experienced. So when I want to break down a lot of cardboard, especially like thick double-walled cardboard, this is the single best knife for it ever made because this is 0.09 blade stock. This is super, super thin blade stock, the same thing you'll find on these, but the handle here is so rigid and sturdy, and you have such amazing, comfortable ergonomics that you can put as much force as you need to and just glide right through that cardboard. It is amazing. Next up, we've got the Atom. This is kind of people's favorite in a lot of cases. If they like bigger knives, they always call this a 3.5-inch knife. It's actually 3 3/8, but I personally don't reach for this anywhere near as often because it's just a little bit big for me. You can see how much handle they're sticking out, but it's just a spectacular knife. I typically go for one of my 2 Neutrons instead. This Neutron is the one that Knife Modders modified. I got that modded the exact same time as we got this modded, and they are matching. Let's just open that up and show their matching holes and matching scales. Anyway, I got both of these. I use this one mostly if I want to just kind of like use a thumb flicking knife. I know that's a weird thing to say, like pick a knife based on how you want to open it, but this is the single best thumb flicking opening hole. But I do have difficulty reverse flicking it. I've at this point figured out how to do it, but I can pretty easily mess that up because there's just not a whole lot of access right there, and the hole size is big enough that my finger kind of slides into it. But this is my original, And it is currently wearing the gorgeous titanium scales that they put out. I have an entire drawer of scales. We'll actually talk about that in just a sec. All of these you've already seen in the tiny knife portion. Go back and watch that section if you want a breakdown of what they all are, but they're basically all nerds because I'm a huge nerd, and then this incredibly cool integral frame slip joint implementation that is using the frame here at the back to be the like back spring. So it's the actual liner itself that is flexing upward. It's just a really cool design. Okay, I'm not gonna actually take them all out, but I have an entire drawer of scales of all kinds of materials for all the different ones, including some ones like this that are made by Match Anderson and are stunningly beautiful. I've got several sets from him. He's incredibly cool. Hit him up. While I'm here with TRM section, I'm going to point out that I am going to get to meet Marianne, Les, and the entire TRM crew at Blade Show, and I could not be more excited about that. Marianne actually invited me out to dinner with them on Saturday, and I think it's going to be one of the coolest nights I've ever had. They're such incredibly cool people, and it's going to be, I'm going to nerd out so freaking hard getting to talk to Les and Marianne in person. It's just, I cannot wait. The other thing is that I really hope the next time I film a section on this that I have a Comet, because their newest knife that they're coming out with, the Comet, it's a harkening back to their Halpern titanium days of doing really high-end CNC milling on titanium. These light, super flexible, a little bit lower in terms of like mid-range knives are their bread and butter these days with TRM, but they've got such a deep history of doing fancy, cool CNC work on titanium knives and frame locks and things like that. So their newest knife is going to be really, really freaking cool, and I really hope I can pick one up. Okay, I think this is one of the last like focus on a specific designer subsections, and this is Enrique Peña. Everything here is in an X-Series, so those are the re-op production versions. I would love to get one of his customs someday. Maybe I'll get the chance. Maybe at Blade Show, who knows? On our far left, we have the Bravo. It's the biggest one on the table. It's still not a huge knife, but this is a full-size knife, and it is easily probably the best X-Series knife. Like just the overall fit and finish of this, the way that this falls closed, just everything about it, the ergos. This is a stupendous knife. Absolutely adore it. I'm not normally someone that goes for copper and brass and these kind of warmer golden tones. I know a lot of people love them, but I think it just looks so dang good on this particular knife. But the funny thing is, I honestly forgot I owned it, and I left it in the box for like 2 full months. And the reason is because I got a different knife that is basically hitting this exact same kind of market segment of being a little bit of a wedge, but like a heavier use, harder use knife that is also about this exact same size and kind of aesthetically a little bit similar. And that one completely just captivated me because it was my friend's knife. We'll talk about that one in just a moment. But yeah, this Bravo is... Oh, I'm really glad that I remember that I bought this. Next up, this is one of my favorites, perhaps my actual favorite from this whole set. This is the large Apache. It's still not a big knife, but that little bit of extra handle space just makes all the difference, and it feels so dang good. This is in ebony wood, and I swear, this is about as close to a custom as I've really kind of experienced from Ria. It is amazing action. Everything about this feels dialed in that way that custom knives feel dialed. And it's just so freaking pretty. That's actually how I got this in the first place. I bought this off a friend of mine because it was just a little bit too pretty for him. It's just actually exactly what happened with this version as well. I bought these both from my friend Jesper. This is the Urban EDC exclusive Sagaiha version of it. It's the only one I have that is in a frame lock version. He tends to do all the X-Series in a frame lock. And I just don't like them as much because the lock bar is just a little bit more stiff, so it's a little bit harder, and it's just a little bit more tension as you're closing. It's still easy to operate for sure, and if you're trying to close it, it'll close, but I just don't love that aspect of it, so I tend to go for the more common bolster lock versions. But this is just such a cool, it's that Workerman Sagaiha pattern that's just kind of going all over the place. It's really, really freaking cool. Speaking of exceptionally cool partnerships, this version, did you see that flipper tab just disappeared? This is the Lee Williams Kickstop collaboration. This is a exclusive, so this one was an exclusive from Urban EDC. This is an exclusive from Steel Addiction Knives. They're the ones that put together this whole collaboration between Peña and Lee Williams to get this version put out there. And it's just has some of the single best flipper action, period. It's just so dang good. My hypothesis is that the fact that the flipper tab is disconnected from the blade means that you aren't like at this point, normally there's just a little bit of drag as as the flipper tab leaves your finger. Like if there's jimping here and it's hanging on your finger at all, there's just a little bit of drag on your finger. And because this is now disconnected, I'm able to push down to kind of a push button action here. And this has nothing hanging onto it. That's my only theory about why this would ever be any better. Otherwise, I have nothing, because this is just a stupendous action that is probably mostly just because I haven't really a detent, but it's just so dang good. The other thing is it makes this little bit extra click as it closes, because when it hits this first part, there's a first click. And then when it actually closes, it has the second click. And so it just has a little ting as it closes. That's just fun. I adore this knife, and it's just so freaking cool. Okay, next up, this is the Raptor in Black Micarta. I bought this off another friend of mine. Shout out to Marco from Knives of the Round Table. This is a knife that he sent me on loan, and I said, can I just keep this, please? Like, I'll pay you for it. And he said, yeah, I guess I was kind of planning on selling that. This is my personal favorite user out of the X-Series, because this downward facing blade is the same thing as that McBee, where it's just set up to pierce boxes already. It has an incredible grind on that hollow grind. Yeah, get that focus. And then lastly, it has a different flipper tab from all of the others, and this is just a functionally better flipper tab. As much as I love this kind of flipper tab, it relies entirely on traction. You can't push on this. You have to pull on it using the grip, and this is different. It actually has a lever arm distance where you can push right here. You can push, and it just makes it that much easier. This is flawlessly easy to open, and it's just also a really cool looking knife. Next up is another one I bought off of a friend. This is also an exclusive, a Crane's Cutlery exclusive. They do this kind of lava flow, jungle wear, that style of fat carbon. This I bought off my friend Noah, and it is a knife that I keep around because it's green, and I just love green, and I want more green in knives. But it's hard to find. But this is my second favorite. I guess the third favorite. This is my Apache is my aesthetic favorite. The Raptor is my functional favorite, and the Zulu here is my third favorite of these kind of modern traditional styles that he's doing. It has a nice low tip and a nearly entirely flat edge, so this is kind of like a sheep's foot in that direction, but it's very clearly a Zulu blade shape. I just don't need it, which is why I don't know why I keep it. The other fun thing. You can flick off of this. So if you go like that, you can flick. There's just enough of the grind exposed. If you're a lefty, it's even easier because the nail neck gives you traction, but you can, if you just stick your finger in there, flick out. And that's the other reason why I keep this around, because none of the other ones are flickable. And then you already saw this if you watched the tiny knife portions. This is continuing the Apache line, but the micro Apache. This is also a Crane's Cutlery exclusive. You can tell from the lava flow fat carbon. And I just, it's an expensive knife, and that Crane's Cutlery fat carbony stuff made it even more expensive, but it's just such a good fifth pocket knife. I love small box cutting knives. This is usually all the knife that I actually need in my EDC. And so, I'm so incredibly happy to have this one in my collection. Okay, so now we're getting to the point where things are getting a little bit spicy. So this is, I guess, knives that were done by OEMs, but for designers who are primarily known for their custom knives. So there's going to be a lot of designer-made OEM knives coming up, but these ones are all people that are very well established for their customs first and foremost. So right up here, we've got the Mini Tempest by Sharp Eye Designs. That's the knife company name for Brian Nadeau. He makes absurdly high-end customs that I'll never be able to afford. They are kind of pristine and perfect, and it kind of carries over really, really well. It's a good partnership with Riot, because Riot makes basically perfect production knives. The Mini Tempest is one of those knives that showed me that a 3.5-inch knife can somehow work for me, and it's largely because of how good this handle fits my hand and how good the blade to handle ratio is on this. The other thing that's really cool is Brian Nadeau invented the detent nub. So it's this little ramp that is built into the lock bar insert, and it acts as the detent ball and also as the lock face, and it has such a distinct feel when you open it. It's unlike anything else, and it's a really, really cool innovation that he did. Give him all the credit in the world for that. This one here is the Apex. It's basically the same kind of everything I just said about that. The difference between this one is it got the opening hole and the weird slots here. The one thing I don't like about this one is the placement of this clip. It's at the very top, and so I feel it when I squeeze, but it's just a really freaking cool knife. Coming over here, this is the Sham Weary. So this is the Wii production run of the Gareth Bull Sham Wari, and yeah, it's one of the aesthetically prettiest looking minimalist knives. I think it's just such a beautiful knife. I get why everyone loves it. And it actually fits my hand really, really wonderfully too. Like, it just feels fantastic in my hand. But I don't know. I personally don't tend to go for knives that I can front flip only. I tend to prefer knives that I can reverse flick too. And so I probably will never hunt down one of his, but I don't know. Maybe if I ever get one in hand, they're supposed to have absolutely stupendous action, but this Wii version does have really good action too. Speaking of things with really good action, this is the Richard Rogers OEM Slim Utility, and it was made by Bestech, and it's one of those things that convinced me early on that Bestech can make a truly fantastic knife. This is wildly thin and light. It's so skeletonized, and it just kind of disappears in your pocket. It also has a very thin lock bar, and the result of this very huge skeletonization aspect and this thin lock bar means that it has a little bit of like a click into place toy quality that I know some people don't love, but this is just a fantastic EDC knife. It is so delightful. And you wouldn't expect something with this, I guess, light of a detent and this light of a lock bar and this light of a blade to be able to have great action. But, oh man, it's a poppy detent and it just flicks so freaking well. I adore it. Fantastic, fantastic knife. Next up, we've got Can I Reverse Flick It? Oh man, my fingers are just a little bit slippery today. So this is the Philippe Georget CKF Custom Knife Factory production version of the 520. And this is, I just think, one of the prettiest knives of all time. It's also this kind of geometric 3-panel thing. I know Vero has gotten a lot of attention for that in the past too. I just really like it. I think it's a really fun way of combining beautiful curves and swoops with something that is also angular and geometric. I think it's just a stunningly beautiful knife. You can reverse flick it, but like if my fingers are slippery at all, it's really easy for me to slide off this. So it's not the easiest in the world. There are a couple of makers out there or modders out there that will do a slot mod right here, which would be just stupendous, and that would definitely pull in the Vero comparisons even more. The reverse flick action is pretty good, but especially on this particular version. So this is the version that I think has the best action of all of them because it has just a slightly stronger detent. And so I've heard friends that have the bolster lock versions. Actually, they're a bolster look. They're a liner lock version. I've heard people say that those ones just have just light enough of a detent that it's a little bit underwhelming to flick it, but this version is fantastic. Okay, up next we have the Oaks Works. That's Eric's Oaks EDX line. So this is the Solar Storm EDX. The EDX is what he calls his Riot production versions. It's like the equivalent over here. These are made by Riot, and this is just such a freaking cool knife. I got to meet Eric about almost exactly a year ago, and he's one of the nicest makers I've ever gotten to talk to. Incredibly friendly, cool guy, and I bought a custom from him that you'll see coming up later. This knife is such a freaking cool looking knife, and I just love the shapes here. I love the angles here. I love the ergonomics and the way this fits in my hand. It is a really, really delightful knife, especially with this kind of wonderful, wonderful hollow grind that Riot does so well. Speaking of Riot and speaking of hollow grinds, next up, this is the Christensen Knife Works Maverick S. It's the S for small. It's the production version, again through Riot, of the Maverick from Matthew Christensen. And it's another maker I got to speak to at that exact same show. An incredibly easy guy to talk to. Really, really cool. I think his knives look fantastic. And this smaller size here, I have both the micarta and the titanium. This just fits my hand so well. I think this knife looks so freaking good. And the hollow grind that Riot does on these is insane. It's really interesting. Normally you think of liner locks as having a lighter detent, but this one actually has a pretty freaking strong detent and some lock stick right there. And so it's actually a snappier open on the liner lock version than on this one, but it's, perfectly good in both. This one also has a tappy clip, but if I hold it just the right way, that clip actually reverberates when I open it. And I can feel it echoing. It's a really cool effect. I think these knives are gorgeous, and they're also a good segue into the Brian Brown Knives Jaeger M, because it's another knife from Riot that has just an insane hollow grind. Look at that. Oh my God. So this is the full plain tie version. I love this. I love this. I love this. But there's versions that I wanted even more. One of which is the Fanatic Edge Knives Golf Puttery version. If I can ever find that, I will I will buy that. But the other one, I posted a video saying I was looking for it, and a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I actually have one of those. This is the Richlight, or I think it's Richlight, but either way, it's a form of paper micarta exclusive that was done for the Facebook group for Brian Brown Knives. And this is everything as good as that, but just with this really cool inlay material. It also has a darker wash, which is a nice contrast, and is kind of the reason why I justify having both. The other reason is that this one is a flipperless, and this has a flipper, and so this one has a better choking up. But honestly, you can choke up over this very minimalist flipper design pretty darn easily, and it's still really comfortable, and it has a really great flipping action. So I think that's worth reason keeping both, but I don't know. If I ever get the golf puttery version of this, that's what's going to make this leave my collection. Last up, we already saw this in the small tiny knives portions. You can go back, learn about more of that. This is the Berg Blades Mini Slim, and it's just a delightful nugget knife. I don't think I'll ever use this in actual use because it is a bit of a wedge. I would love if this had the same kind of hollow grind as these, but really I just like this because it makes me happy. Every time I hold them, like, yeah, it's just a delightful nugget. This, by the way, was just like that one. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, I can barely fit these all on the same screen. These are also OEM'd knives, but instead of people who are known for making customs, these are designers that are known for designing knives. Some of these are my friends. Some of these don't quite exactly fit that, but I lumped them in here for the, you'll see when we get there. Okay, so this is the Boost Blades Smoke Mini, and this is one of the lightest knives, period. It's like 1.8 ounces or something like that. It is a spectacular front flipper because it has just a really, really practical. I know some people don't like the big type of mohawky style, but it works so freaking well. And this is such an absurdly slim, cool knife. I'm hoping to get one of the custom arrows from Boost at some point. This next one up is one of the ones that I'm already kind of sort of breaking the rules here. This is the Millet Torrent. So this is not actually like a TJ Schwartz design under like his own name, but this is a TJ Schwartz design, and Millet has done OEM work for so many other people that I kind of think this feels like it's the same thing. It feels like Millet doing OEM work for TJ Schwartz. This particular one is really, really cool. It is a V2 V3 Segway. So it's got the V3 style back, but the V2 style front with the kind of overlay that they did. And there's only 10 of these in existence. I think it's just an incredibly cool knife. And this is the kind of thing that shows you that Millet can do really, really, really high-end work. Next up, we've got two knives from EMP. That's Every Man's Pocket. This is the infamous, that has a negative connotation. The just extremely famous, the Nimble. There's several things about this that I don't quite love. I just don't really tend to love when you fit a bunch of flipper tabs and stuff at the expense of others. And it's one of the things I really hate is that it does that. But if you just try to flipper this the right way with a light switch, it works really, really well. It's got fantastic flicking action. It is a fidgety dream, but I don't know. I'll probably lose this at some point from my collection. This one's going to stick around forever, I think, because I just find it delightfully hilarious. This is the Thick Boy, and this is one of those knives that just makes me happy. It's such a stupid nugget knife, and it has so much weight at the tip that when it falls, it thunks back in your hand in this way that is just delightful. So this will probably always stick around, although I might someday, if I'm really feeling ambitious, upgrade this to the V2, because the V2 version of the Thick Boy, he got rid of this little hole here. That's the other thing, that reason why I just don't care for the Nimble all that much, is that the way that it pushes your fingers apart when you hold this just doesn't feel great in my hand. It never has, but the V2 has that fixed. But man, that is just incredibly fun. Next up, we have the Liang Ma EDC, what do they call these? Field Duty 3.5. This is a knife that I shouldn't have bought because it's just way, 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 way too big for me. So this is a huge knife, but it's actually a really, really cool knife. It got a lot of flack for having a really light detent because certain reviewers got versions that came to them with absurdly light detents. I know that there's a lot of variants from knives, even within a production run from something like Riot, but my particular one does not have a stupid light detent. It's the hole is so big that your lever arm distance is so big that this is still a very, very, very light detent, but it does not come out unless I really thwack at it. So I don't know. It's just a bigger knife than I really have. I got it because of FOMO, honestly, but it also is really, really cool in the way that it's doing this bolster, because this bolster this is not a bolster lock. This is an inset liner lock. Kind of. This is I don't know what you call it. It is, I guess it's just a liner lock, but it has an overlay bolster in a way that's done in a really cool way. It attaches on the inside, and so it gives you the impression of it being a bolster lock, and it just, I don't know, it's a cool construction. It also has a cool clip that attaches at the back and makes it full deep carry, but still acts like a nail-tight clip. There's a lot of really cool things that this is doing. It also has just that kind of mohawk style. We'll talk about that again when we get down to this one, but it is a pretty cool knife. It is cool. It got a lot of flack, but it didn't deserve. Okay, next up, this is the Whole Spiro from Asher Knives. This is a budget Rosie, as good as you ever find of a budget Rosie. This is a spectacular knife, super thin blade stock, one of the sliciest knives in my collection, and this is like just over $100. This is an incredible knife. He absolutely nailed it with these. I have a difficult time thumb flicking this though, because it just has not quite enough grip right here for it to catch my finger, but from reverse flick, oh, it is an absolute dream, and it's just such an incredibly thin, disappear in your pocket, wonderful slicing knife. He blew it away with these. Wonderful. Okay, next up, we've got two knives from Dylan Mallory, and this is another one where I'm kind of breaking the rules, because this here is the Artisan Tylos, and it is an artisan knife, so it's not them doing OEM work, whereas this is artisan doing OEM work, and this is the Dylan Mallory Forest, number 10 out of however many he made. But I put them together because they're just so clearly related, and they're both made by artisan, and they're both so like quintessentially Dylan Mallory designs. Dylan Mallory is one of those knife designers that's just like an incredibly humble, sweet person, so everyone adores him as a human, and his designs are so incredibly just distinct. They're so different from what everyone else is putting out, so you either love or you hate his designs, but I think these are incredibly cool. This particular one here, the Tylos, is basically like a shrunken down bolster lock version of the Forest, and so I love this. It's just fantastic. It also has a front flipper on there. And so honestly, to me, I think this is just kind of like an improved version of this, but which I feel a little bit bad saying, but whatever. He's getting paid for both, just not quite as much on these. Fantastic knives. I definitely recommend you hunting one down. And actually, let me grab it real quick. Not part of the collection, but I actually have this in at the moment. This is the Gen 2, the titanium liner lock version of the Forest, and it is really freaking cool. Get that out of the way. Okay, let's keep going. Next up, we have, oh, I should probably turn this over and keep them going in the same direction. I've been really bad about this whole video. This is the Picaroon Tools Mutineer. I think it's just a really freaking cool looking knife. It is Bestech OEM'd, and is some of the best work that Bestech had ever put out at that point, and still some of the best work Bestech has put out. It is really well done. It's a small knife, and I don't know, it just fits my hand perfectly. I don't know. I think it's fantastically done. Let's jump down here. So this here is 3 different iterations of the Kvist Bladeworks variant PE. So the variant is the name of the knife, PE is the production version, and we have, what is this? This is the Gen 1 of the production version. This is the Gen 2, and the big difference here is the flipper tab. There's a couple other subtle differences throughout, but the big difference is the flipper tab, and such a freaking good slicer, such a freaking good budget knife. Kvist got QSP to do these, and it is, I swear to God, they completely freaking nailed these knives. This is an Urban EDC exclusive Sagaiha version. I think I'm right about this, as saying Justin did these scales himself. I might be wrong about that, but I think he did the milling and the customization of these. Correct me if I'm wrong, but incredibly beautiful version of this knife. Really cool, and I cannot wait to meet Justin at Blade. This is really cool. This is the JHO Knives number 22. It's an updated version of the number 18. Both of those numbers refer to the number, the shape of a particular scalpel standard. So the original number 18 has a more standard traditional scalpel shape, and so that's why I didn't go for it, because it's just not a very me blade shape from having a high tip. Now that he did the number 22, this is a much more me blade shape. But this is just a really cool knife. Like aesthetically, this guy is, I think, a graphic designer. He's some kind of designer, maybe industrial designer, and it shows. This knife is just, this is an aesthetic knife, even more than it is a practical knife, because this is like pretty beefy blade stock, but it's just such a freaking weird, cool looking knife. It also has, oh my God, action. So freaking good. It's absurdly buttery smooth, and it's so easy to use this tall flipper. It's just, I don't know, it's a really freaking cool knife. It also has a fully deep carry milled wraparound style clip that is like a multi-axis mill the same way that quiet carry had. And it's just very few people do this in the industry. So how freaking cool is that? I just aesthetically love this knife. I think it's just really, really cool. Okay, next up, some friends, other people that I'm super excited to finally get to meet at Blade Show. We've got, I should do this order. Let's do that. This is my friend Chris. This is Renegade Provisions Co. This is the God of Mischief. And this is why that Peña Bravo just kind of stayed in his box for so long, because this is doing the same kind of like sturdier tip. It's not like ground super duper thin. A lot of people are expecting this to be a hollow grind like the like the Gungnir that he did, but this knife is designed to be a more robust blade, but it's doing such a good job of coming down to a very precise tip still. So I think this is balancing that blend of like robust user, thicker, fill your hand kind of thing, the same thing that the Bravo is doing, but also that really, really good precision to get utility cuts there. The other thing is I very slightly lightened the lock bar pressure, just the slightest bit, and now this is this wild float home. I love it. It takes such little effort to close this. So overall, this is maybe my favorite of the like OEM made designer knives. The exception is going to be these guys over here, but I love this knife. But speaking of knives that I absolutely love, let's get into these guys. So this is Devo Knives. This is the Buzz. This is Lefty EDC, Kevin, and CM Knife Designs, Colin. They are a power team in this kind of designer OEM space at this point. They are such a good partnership. They're coming out with amazing designs, and they're so good at the business side of it too. They've been very prolific as a result. And this, I think, is my favorite thing they've done to date. Ergos on this is just so freaking good. And when I was talking about really, really, really good production from Bestech, the grind on this is so thin, and the stock isn't that thick to begin with. So this is a wicked slicer and has such a good reverse flick. Now, this type of Mohawk style of top flipper, it absolutely works. It's just not my favorite because it relies entirely on traction. And my personal thing is I think that this style of pocket clip, I love wire deep carry clips, but it just doesn't give you a whole lot of traction. And I find for myself, in order to do this, I end up actually having to curl up onto this handle just a little bit in order to get good traction. But I noticed in videos that's actually what Kevin is doing too. Anyway, this fills my hand perfectly. I'm spending too much time on this. I love this knife. Really, really, really good. I actually bought a second set of knurled scales for that. This is the OG design from them. And what we have here is the Stout. And this is the knife that kind of kicked it all off with their partnership. And it is a really, really great action. You just know it's going to be a great action because, Lefty is the D10 diva. And so, of course, he's going to have a knife that is able to fly home like that and just fly out like that. It also just has really, really, really good ergos. But this isn't part of the collection, but let me just give it a little quick sneak peek. I wish this was part of the collection. This is the Pony Stout, which, if you don't know, is the beer terminology for a quarter size keg. I think it's a quarter keg. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a third keg. Anyway, it's the smaller keg size that you use for homebrew and whatnot. And so that's their cute little pun with this being the Stout. This is the Pony Stout. And this version, I don't know, something about this just absolutely nails it. It is exactly the right size, full 4-finger grip. But part of it also is that it's just thinner all around. It's got thinner overall handle, thinner blade stock, and the big thing is that it has contouring right here. So even though the general lines of this are the same, it fixes a lot of the things I didn't like that made this feel a little bit brooky in my hand. This just melts into my hand. So this, I think, man, they absolutely nailed this. I think this is a White Mountain Knives exclusive. I might be wrong about which dealer it is, but I think that's who it is. This is an amazing knife. So I mentioned this already in the Tiny Knives version. This technically isn't in my collection and is just a prototype that is a loaner, but I will 1000% be buying this. This is the Devo Knives Nip, and that of course is the name for a small pour of a drink, just a nip. Anyway, this is such a freaking good 5th pocket knife. I'm going to have a full video on this coming up, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And that brings me to what I think is my absolute favorite of this kind of designer getting an OEM to do stuff of all time knives. It's the TW Price Dawn. This is the V1 with the frame lock, and this is the V2 with the liner lock. And I just adore this. Aesthetically, this is just such an incredibly me knife. I just think it is so incredibly beautiful. One of the things about this whole wave of designer knives is there's a lot of people putting out knives that just kind of look really, really plain or just look like things you've seen a million times. It makes you kind of scratch your head and wonder why someone bothered to do that. Like, why they bothered putting the effort to make that into the world. And this is one of those things that shows that that is not always the case. This is kind of the exception to the rule to some degree. But this is a first-time design that just really looks dialed in and perfected and from every single perspective. Like, this is the kind of thing where you wouldn't know this was someone's first design, let alone that he was freaking like 18 when he put this out. I think he's 21 now. No, but he was like 18 when he first started drawing this. Everything about this knife is an exceptional me knife. I really, really love it. And the action is so good. The detent is even stronger on this one. It's just so snappy. I love this knife. Okay, quick, 2 more knives that fall into this section. I just don't have space for them on the table. This is the Ferrum Forge Stinger. So Ferrum Forge, they technically did make customs early on, so probably would have fit better into the previous section. But for the most part, they are designers of knives that they get made over in China, and these ones are done, I think they're all done by Wee and Civivi. So this is one of those knives that is like kind of about as good as budget knives can tend to go. It's very angular, pointy, fast-looking aesthetic, so not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I think a lot of people also just really love it for that sake. But it's also one of those knives that just really, really works well. Man, such good, snappy action. Really, really cool knife. And lastly, this is one of the ones that came in the last couple of days since I started filming that. This is the NAFS Lander, and this one was a gift from Urban EDC and Ben Peterson himself. This is an exclusive premium M390 version that they did with Urban EDC. Then there's a Gaiha pattern handles, and it is just, it's a really, really solid version of this knife. The action is fantastic. It feels great in my hand, and upgrading all of the materials, I think the construction just feels upgraded too. Like, this does not feel like a budget knife, and I think it's just because it just isn't. This is like a premium version of the Lander, and it's so freaking cool. It's also just, it means a heck of a lot that they wanted to give this to me as a gift, and I that means the world. So thank you. Realized I totally forgot to pull this one out. You know, it's just in a different drawer from the other stuff, and so I just missed it as I was going. This is the Lift Concepts Avant. It would have fallen right next to the knives from like Left EDC and Fist Blade Works and stuff in that designer OEM made. It's a really cool knife, works really, really well. It's one of those things, like I said in my video, it looks kind of weird, but if you hold it in your hand, you suddenly understand why it's shaped the way it is. Yeah, really cool knife. Okay, so this is the portion of my collection that I honestly think I'm the most excited about, and it's also where I've been having the most fun lately delving into knives, because this is the kind of like gadgety, nerdy mechanism and also the history side. I love everything on here because of how incredibly cool and weird it is. Some of the stuff is absurdly cheap, like this. Some of this is absurdly expensive, but everything here is interesting mechanically, and I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. It's also been my opportunity to explore the kind of history, like I said. So we've got some old things going on here. So this is the Michael Walker Blade Lock. Blade Lock is the name of the knife. It does say it right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Michael Walker is the guy who invented the modern concept of the liner lock. There was a similar liner lock thing that predates it, but what we consider a liner lock today with like the detent ball and the stop pin and everything like that, he did that. And so this is another one of his many, many, many lock mechanisms and patents. This is the Blade Lock. There's this little tiny lever here that you push in, and that disengages the lock. It's locked in both open and closed position. You have to push it in on the close as well. And it's just an incredibly cool, weird thing. I'll do a whole video on this at some point. This is the Alan Elishewitz. Oh, can I get this to open? Oh, so close. This is the Alan Elishewitz E-Lock, another CRKT design. This one has another cantilever little lock bar right there that's going into a slot that's in the open and closed position. But this one, unlike that, has a ramp right there, which means this actually acts as a detent. It's just not a very strong detent, and I currently have this tuned in a way that, can I open this with a, there, okay, I can thumb flick it. Really, really cool thing. Continuing with CRKT, I'm going to skip this one for a moment, doing like weird and wild mechanisms. This is the Ed Van Hoy Snaplock, and this is one of the very first kind of gadget knives that I bought. It's a really minimalist design where the entire thing is just this little V-shaped frame, and then you push down on this lever right here, which pries the bar open, and allows you to flip it open. A really, probably not a practical design, but just such an incredibly cool mechanism. And also, if you take the paper clip off and swap it to the one, it did come with a reverse clip, it is ambidextrous. Sticking with CRKT doing cool stuff, this is the Glenn Klecker Nurk Novo. And it's what he calls his Nurk lock. It stands for Nathan. Nathan is his son. Nathan's irreducible complexity knife. So basically what we're saying here is that you can't take any piece of this out and have it still function. So it says irreducible complexity. And this is where we're getting into the frame itself acting as the lock bar. That came up with that TRM Atlas. This is another example of people in history using the frame and its ability to flex to lock the knife. But this is an actual locking knife. This particular one is an exceptionally cheap implementation. I think these were like $8 originally, incredibly cheap. But this is because this is just like stamped steel. But this kind of makes it even cooler to me because this is literally just all one super simple piece here. Like this is all for $8. They're able to make this level of complexity in terms of the actual mechanism. And because when you squeeze it, you're pushing down on this, it's even more secure. But the funny thing to me is that this blade is actually like a killer freaking blade. This is such a good thin hollow grind and on a blade shape that I would absolutely love today. But this is quite an old knife at this point. But let's continue that theme to something that's an even older version. And this is, oh, okay. So this is a Pat Crawford design. He originally called this, I think, the top lock, maybe the lift lock. I forget which one came first. He's used both names, but this is a production version from A.G. Russell. We'll talk all about the legend of this in the full video of this because the story of how it came to be, I don't know, it's got some controversy to it, but how freaking cool is this? This is a 1987, like I think this is from the first production year, integral from A.G. Russell, made in Japan, and it uses the frame itself to act as the leaf spring for the bar. So you have to kind of pull on these little nubs right here to lift up to close this. So this knife is called the one-hand knife. That's like the official name of it. It's the K87 one-hand knife because in 1987, this is one of the very first one-hand operated knives to have ever existed. But it's definitely not the first because we have an even earlier example right here. This is one of my latest additions to this whole collection, and I think this is the coolest freaking thing. This is the Gerber Paul knife from Paul Pullman. This is when Gerber was still making stuff in Oregon. So right there, Portland, Oregon. I just think that's so freaking cool. But this knife, ooh, this is, you can see the one right here, right there. This is a first production year of this knife from 1977. And this knife, look at that. You can, if you swing it, open and close this completely one-handed and very, very fast all the way back in 1977. How incredibly cool is that? But it also is doing something the exact opposite of how every other knife you've probably ever handled does. The blade, in a way, this is kind of like a button lock in the sense that you suppress a button in order to be able to close and open the blade. But instead of pressing the button in and that frees the blade up so that it can then move, when you press the button in, you're freeing the handle up so that it can move. This button is actually affixed to the blade itself, and so this is the part that has to move. And by the way, when this closes, oh my God, this is the single best ASMR from a knife I've ever experienced. From like a clicky gadget I've ever experienced. It resonates so well. This thing, man, it looks like it'd be a top flipper, but it's completely locked in this closed position. They made, I'm spending way too much time on this. This is just so freaking cool. Okay, where do I want to jump to from here? I included this in the tiny knife section because this is technically a different kind of locking mechanism. This is basically a liner lock, but also an integral frame lock in a way, but it's like so up to high. It's not along the edge. I don't know what you call this exactly. It's, I don't know, it's neat, but it's also an incredibly cheap little knife. Go back to the tiny version if you want to hear me talk more about that and how it compares to the Kiss. What do we have here? So this is a very, very cheap knife, and it's just a lockback. But I got this because, look at this. This clear handle makes it so easy to demonstrate how a lockback actually works. That is just, I love it. I love it. It's brilliant. This is, I think, like, I don't know, like a $10 knife, but oof. It's actually really good for that. I'm going to skip that for now, and let's come back to how CRKT is willing to do these wild and crazy things. They just tend to do them in cheap materials, which sucks. And let's move over here to where we have the deadbolt lock. So this particular one is assisted, actually. This is a design by Flavio Acoma called the Attaboy, and I wanted a Flavio Acoma design because the deadbolt lock itself is a Flavio Acoma invention. He is who we have to thank for having bearings in knives, because he's one half of the folks that did the IKBS. He's the Acoma is the I in IKBS, and they're the ones who first, like I said, brought bearings into knives. But this implementation here, this lock mechanism here, it's called the deadbolt lock. Obviously aesthetically, because it looks like a deadbolt. Also from a marketing perspective, because that name evokes like a very strong lockup, and it is an exceptionally strong lockup. When you push in this pin, it's actually acting similar to this, where there's a little button you suppress, and on the other side, that's pushing a locking pin in and out. But then this one, it's these two really large hardened steel pins. You're not gonna be able to see them in this. Actually, you might be able to see them down in there. But yeah, there's two pins right there. And so this is an incredibly strong lock. And it's also really simple to use. Like it's very intuitive. I'm impressed with how good this is. Sticking with CRKT and things that are really easy to use, we have both iterations of the field strip technology. Now these aren't novel lock mechanisms. Both of these are just plain liner locks. These are also both Ken Onion designs, because again, it was important to me to have Ken Onion designs on these, since Ken Onion is the guy who invented these field strip technologies. But the version 1 of the field strip means that you don't have to have any tools to take this apart. All you have to do is flip this lever open and spin this back spacer back here. So this is a reverse threaded gear screw thing that stays on this knife, and the entire thing comes apart very quickly, but nowhere near as quickly as, I gotta squeeze that, nowhere near as quickly as Gen 2. Like literally you just push this up, and this entire knife is apart now. It's insane how cool this is. And I'm gonna do a really nerdy video. I know there's a lot of videos that show what I just showed right there, but I wanted to take this whole thing apart and talk about how they're pulling this off. It's really cool. Okay, let's switch over to, let's go to this. So this is like $8. It's really cheap, but I picked one of these up recently. Actually, I should say this particular one is a loaner, but I bought one in the next drop that's coming. So I'm actually going to have my own, but we'll get to that in a moment. And so I'm kind of been exploring these small utility knife blade holder things. This particular one, Screw Pop, is super duper simple. It has this little just kind of friction fit bar right here. There's nothing holding this up or down just by other than friction. And then it has this little magnet right there that tracks the knife in and out. So this just takes a regular utility blade, you slide it up, slide it back down, and now it's in a locked position. Slide that up, and it slides back to that magnet. It's really dead simple. And like I said, this is like $8. On the other end of the spectrum, you have something like this. This is the newest 3rd generation of the Snex Mono. And this is Snex's newest totally redesigned lock, where it's a single mono block. That's what he calls his integral complete one-piece version of a utility knife holder. And man, this version, it just has a way better designed lock mechanism if you actually care about keeping this locked in. The original version of the Mono was brilliant, and a lot of people have been inspired by it, but it's always had the problem where if you're kind of working on something that's doing side to side, like if your blade gets wedgetal, it can push over and slide out. And this version just plain can't. It also has the ability to slide back in place, and that's so freaking cool. Snex is a brilliant wizard, which is going to be a segue into one of the two directions that the kind of Snex direction is going to spin. This is the Snex Mini Buster. This could have fallen into the production knife category, could have fallen into the like designer knives being OEM by Productions. Technically it is a wee knife, but this is a production version of Snex's Mini Buster. The original isn't a massive knife. This is just a full-size knife. But what's so incredibly innovative about this, aside from just like the incredible, really cool steampunky look of this all, is this thing right there. This is what he calls his hybrid detent pin system. And so there is a little pin that is acting both as the lock face engagement and as the detent ball. And like it feels very similar in a way to Brian Nadeau's detent nub, because there is a milled surface on this that is a uniform flat surface that you ramp up when you open it. So it has this kind of soft, thick thwack feel when you open, and it's just so freaking satisfying. And it's also one of those knives that floats home like that. It's not guillotine, it floats. And oh, that is so freaking cool. It's just a cool looking knife. Okay, let's bring that over to another Snex design. This is the WE Vision R. This is another case where we partnered with him to make a production version of something that he had only ever done in customs in a very small number before. The Vision is a design that kind of has taken a lot of little forms, but the Vision R is this version that incorporates the ability to have a removable backspacer, or a lock bar, for cleaning purposes. It has this weird top mounted thing here, which people always overlook the fact that this is what's providing the downward tension, preventing this from just falling out when you pull back. People always talk about it just being a pocket clip, but it's also a functional thing. And so in order to get rid of this on the new lower budgety version they're doing with Civivi, in order to make it a regular-ish pocket clip to appease the masses, they also had to get rid of the ability to pull this back out. But this is Snex's Super Lock, and it is loosely, actually, it's in some ways similar to like a axis lock in terms of how locking geometry works, but it's different in the sense that it has a stop pin and a wedged surface here that actually makes this significantly stronger and longer lasting than an axis lock, because it is a perpetually wedging device. And so this is a really cool, innovative lock that he just kind of put out there. He never patented it. He just said, like, here's how this works. How cool is this? And so some people, with his like kind of blessing in a sense, like they didn't ask his blessing, but he said, you can use this design if you want. So Sandrin Knives put out this version. They flat out say it is, they call it the recoil lock, but they flat out say that it is inspired by Snex Tan. And so this works the exact same way, but they did one thing different. They got rid of this top clip, and so this thing can't pull out. So this works the exact same way as the new version of the Vision R is going to work, where this is now actually has a second pin back here that forces it to move just in a linear direction. And so this one can't lift out, but it means that you don't have this stupid clip. This one also is slightly misunderstanding how the wedge concept is supposed to work. So this knife has the slight bit of vertical play, which is supposed to be one of the Super Lock's kind of innovation things, is that it gets rid of the possibility of vertical play, because as it wears in, it will continue to wedge even more. But they didn't quite get that memo part. But this is also just an exceptionally cool knife for the fact that this is not steel. This is their like tungsten carbide thing that is just like super, super hard, lasts forever blade. It also has this blade finish that just looks so freaking weird. It catches the light and just shimmers around. And then this handle is made out of full zirconium. And this entire knife is like 0.32 inches thick or something like that, with a 0.07 inch blade or something. This is just an insanely thin knife, just a lot of weird, a lot of different directions. One of the ways that this is going to branch in terms of the Super Lock is here. This is the Demco 8025 with the Shark Lock. And no, this is not technically based on the Super Lock. Spontaneous convention happens all the time, all over the world. And so I do truly believe that Demco came up with this lock entirely on his own, in large part because this same kind of optimization of adding a stop pin and changing the angle of contact to put it forward facing, it's the same kind of innovation that he did to the back lock to make the triad lock. And so he took something that works functionally similar to an axis lock and made it significantly stronger, and technically in a slightly different way than the Super Lock. And so both him and Snex have gone on record saying that it was not a direct copy of that, and was not even inspired by that, and that they both invented them simultaneously and separately in different parts of the planet. It's a very cool lock mechanism, and it has the same kind of thing where it has to travel up slightly as you pull it out. It's very fun to fidget with. It makes these wonderful clacky noises, but this knife itself kind of aesthetically bugs me from a blade to handle ratio, and also the Shark Lock has this problem of just being kind of jabby. Technically, this is jabby too, and so is this, but these are just so much more subtle, and he puts a full-on little spike there to give it that shark fin look, and so I just don't find this the most comfortable thing in the world. But an incredibly cool lock mechanism, and one of the things that makes Demco just so freaking cool, that he focuses on the performance side of mechanisms. Okay, so let me jump to this now. So one of the things that made Snex so famous in the beginning is that he made a knife that is like a little puzzle box knife that requires absolutely no tools to come apart, but does require a very specific sequence of actions. And that brings us to a different set of folks that are doing that same thing. This is the Avian Knives Atlas, and this is so freaking cool. This is also going to show up, I think, in the section when we talk about ultra high-end production / custom knives, because this is a very, very expensive knife, but this is just such a freaking, like, weird, cool knife. It's a cool looking knife no matter what, but this is again a knife that requires absolutely no tools to come apart. And it's not the easy one lever field strip style. This is the like puzzle box style where you have a little tiny lever bar right here that's being held in by a D-tin ball. If you pull this out, let me pull that. You can see that starts rotating this little back pin right there. If that pin then lines up with that slot, then this whole back clip part can come off. This pin comes out and that frees up this back part to lift up like the hood of a car. That pulls this out of the way to allow this to slide out. And this is the piece that is friction fit, holding the tension here to keep this centered. It's just such a clever, weird, cool design. And I am thrilled to death to have this in the collection. And the only thing that I think is cooler than this on the table right here is this. This is the Winter Blade Co. Factor. This is the current batch 2. I just got into the batch 3 pre-order, and this is just the coolest freaking thing to happen in knives in a really, really long time. There's a lot of videos about this, but I'm going to be putting out what is almost assuredly the nerdiest video in the history of the channel. I know that says a lot because I've gone real hard on a lot of videos in the past, but this one I'm going to talk all about the like magnetism physics, how this is working, why it's working, and why it's just such an exceptionally cool knife. This is magnet detent, magnet lock. This lock works very, very similar to a crossbar axis style lock too, but there's no omega springs. It's using the co-centering property of magnets to pull that lock bar forward. We have a flipper bar thing that has never existed before, and it's also being held in place with magnets and has a springy recoil because of that same co-centering thing. And it's just a really, like, everything about this is going to be such a long nerdy video, because this is Brian Winters is a wizard the same way Snex is a wizard. And one thing I really love about both of these people is that they are trial and error, tinkerer style, learn by experimentation makers. Like, Brian is not a magnetism physicist person. He is I'm going to see, I think that this is going to work by doing that based on my previous experience. Let me try it. Oh, look what it did. Look what it didn't do. He's a tinkerer. And it's so freaking cool. I love that style of discovery. I just love it so much. It's so inspiring to me. And the dude is also wildly prolific. He puts out something new, like a fully formed functional knife. It doesn't even look like a POC. It looks like a finished product. And he puts out something new like practically every week, at least every month. And it is so creative and clever. I'm in awe. Anyway, this whole section of exploring the nerdery of knives is where I'm getting so much joy these days. And I know that almost none of these have actually showed up on the channel yet, but these are all relatively recent acquisitions. And also I want to do these knives justice. And so the full videos on these are going to be a little bit harder for me to do and get all the details right. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we are finally at the end of the knife portion of this video, and this is where things get very, very spicy. We're in the ultra high production, blurring into custom, full-on custom knife space, and these things are really freaking cool. Up first, we have two different versions of the Shirogorov Neon. We have the original Neon Light, and then we have the 2020 custom version, the R20. These are just incredibly cool knives. The action on them is just delightful. They've got that kind of float home thing that Shiro is known for. Yeah, look at that. So freaking cool. These are also like the first well, actually no, but these were one of the very first high-end pieces that I got for myself. I got this as a birthday gift for myself, found this 2 days later, and this was the version I had been hunting. I bought it too. I wasn't planning on keeping both, but here we are. Next up, we've got two pieces from OEM'ed. We have the Whippersnapper and the Warncliffe, and also the Busker. And I forget what they call that blade shape on that one. These are technically production knives, but ultra customized. Both of these were customs for someone. Actually, no, this one was custom for someone, a friend of mine. This one was actually a version that they just put out there and sold at, I think, like GP Knives or something like that. I forget exactly who. So the way that they operate, the parts are made in Italy, but then they're like all of this exceptional amount of customization and finishing is done in-house, and they're all assembled back in California. Okay, coming over to here. Okay, so Trevor Berger is just an absolute king of front flippers, like just such good action, such incredibly smooth close. And I think man, look at the aesthetics on these. He is just an absolute master. He's also an absolute master at hollow grinds. This is the Urban. This is the custom version of the Urban EDC that he did with Urban EDC. But the production version actually came first, and he decided to make some customs later. This is custom number 4. It doesn't say it anywhere on there because my friend who I bought this off of is into ultra minimalism and ultra lack of billboarding even on the inside. Anyway, these knives have just exceptional grinds, truly spectacular knives. And this Urban is one of my absolute favorite EDC knives of all time. It is wow, just wow. Okay, let's go on to this. This is the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt. This is the ultimate final perfect version for me. I originally won a lotto on a bead blast version, and I used that to kind of sort of trade for. I had to actually buy at aftermarket prices and sell at aftermarket prices, which killed me. I hated selling at aftermarket prices because they're so inflated, but I did just spend aftermarket prices to get there. But anyway, one way or another, I managed to get this version in the golf putter. This is the Magna Cut 6364. Everything's stonewashed. This is just like exactly the user Rosie that I wanted to be, and it is a user. I love this. It is such a good user. Just spectacular flicking action, like not unlike anything else. And this is also could have even fit into my gadget section in the previous section because the way he's doing the double detent here is just so weird and clever and such a good example of how innovation can lead to knives that just feel different and better when you use them. It's an amazing knife. Okay, coming over here, we have the Craig Brown Cortex. This is an exceptionally cool knife. It is made by Craig Brown up in Blaine, Washington, and he is one of those people that he is an aerospace engineer and he just wants to apply his engineering and nerdery to knife making in a way that he's like kind of isolated up there in the world. And so when he made the FSD, like he didn't even know what a compression lock was, and he somehow spontaneously co-invented something that's very similar to a compression lock. But he also is doing something really cool and innovative here. We have this like at the top but at the back flipper tab that then hides right there by having this like kind of sunken in portion in the blade. It's a really innovative thing that no one else does, and this knife is currently tuned to do that free fall home thing. You can loosen this up a little bit to make it have guillotine action but still no blade play, but with this, oh, I just absolutely love that. It's such a cool knife. Moving over to where do I want to come? Let's just keep going. This is oh, I got it. So this is a Swain Pull revolver, and I felt proud of myself for doing that right there because this is a strange knife. This is a washer tight lock bar CRK style action knife, but with a front flipper. How weird is that? And I'm a little bit cautious doing this over. Okay, look, I even can front flip it, but yeah, it's a very tight, controlled, kind of glassy action, but on a front flipper, it's a weird combination, and it actually is really hard to do reliably. Moving on down, let's just do this one now. This is I think maybe only Lantra in existence. It's definitely the first Lantra. So this is kind of like a prototype knife that Eric Oakes made for the latest version of the EDX line, which I actually technically have right here. This is the Lantra EDX, and so I have a whole video coming to the channel comparing these two. I think I'm the only one that has this. I don't know if he actually made more, but it's such an incredibly cool knife. It's also so incredibly cool getting to meet him. The action is amazing, and it's so interesting how different the production version came out, and they both have their strengths and weaknesses. A very, very cool video. Stay tuned for that one. But this is also the first like fully handmade custom knife that I ever got. There is no CNC on this. And it's also one of those knives that just has like, woof. Okay, coming down here to sticking with this. This is another, I got this actually at the exact same time practically. This is another like fully handmade knife, and you would be floored to actually know that this is fully handmade because this is so absurdly precise. This is a Mitchell Clark gun stock. It is a stunningly beautiful knife. The action on this is that same kind of free fall home that floats. The front flipper action is potentially the best front flipper action I've ever felt. And this knife, in addition to just being so dang pretty, like I said, the symmetry is perfect. Every little detail is perfect. And it's wild, 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 wild to think that someone made this by hand. Huge, huge fan of this knife. Let's go, keep going this way. This is the first time that I ever had a custom for me custom. I think it's the only time that I've ever done that. So this is the Triaxis Midnight, and this weird looking knife is the just coolest freaking thing. John over Triaxis is an absolute wizard of machining. This is an exceptionally machined knife. Like, this is Grimsmo and beyond. There's so many weird little details, and the way that this is done is so over-engineered in the best kinds of ways. It has absurd action, and like this crazy pocket clip that attaches by sticking a screwdriver in down through here with this weird fifth axis thing is so incredibly weird and nerdy. I love it. I love it to death. John's also just a really fun person to talk to. This is a Southard Mini Tolk, and this is the first high-end knife I ever got for myself, and I actually got this pretty quickly because I learned, I know myself, I hyper shop, and I tend to escalate quickly in learning more and more about the whys and whats of what makes nice, make a product, any kind of product, better than the entry-level versions, and I just kind of worked myself up pretty quickly to saying, I want this. This is a custom. I think this actually is one of the very first ones that he ever made back in the day from this model, and it is just stunningly beautiful knife. Such an incredibly cool knife with all these really, really cool lines, but also just like the micro milling here, the subtle blue anodization, and the action on this. It has my favorite kind of action, where it doesn't free fall home at all. It stays exactly where you put it, but the moment you try to close it at all, it closes. Like, and just such a good flipper action. Amazing, amazing stuff. Okay, talking about flipper action, here we've got two different versions of the Holt Haptic. This is the one that I originally won the lotto for, and this is my only like anodized knife, but this is that kind of hidden secret purple. It never picks up as well on the camera, but if you hold it at an angle, it has this vivid purple, but if you just look straight on, it's vivid blue, and it just, oof. This is the version I actually wanted the whole time. This is a full nude user. I use this all the time. I love this knife. And this happens to be one of the ones that was done in S90V. They did a very small limited run of that. I think honestly, just because they didn't have access to M390 at the moment, just because of like an ordering snafu. But this one also has kind of the scariest action of any knife I have. It really, really wants to chop your finger off. But Holt is just known for their ultra precision. Some people don't like the way that the lock bar opens, but it has this like almost musical light click into place that feels almost the way like listening to your watch tick. Some people really want that heavy snap over you find on something like a CRK. And so those people find these knives a little bit like hollow and toy-like. I love listening to my watch tick. And so to me, these knives feel like mastery of precision. And so I just adore this knife. This is a tremendously mean knife. Okay, coming over, we got two knives from Herman Knives. He's a Polish maker, and he is exceptionally talented. He has a really cool aesthetic. He does exceptional milling. Just the overall fit and finish in these knives are just truly masterful. And this one here is the Sting. It's a little bit larger of the two. There is actually a micro Sting at some point, but the thing, do you hear this? Oh, it does a similar thing to these, but magnified by an order of magnitude. So it's got a very light, springy lock bar that clicks into place with this ring. It echoes like a tuning fork, and it makes a noise that I've just never heard another knife make. Like, listen to this. Man, it is amazing. This one also here is just really cool looking. This is the Vespertilio. That's the genus of bats. I think genus, I may be wrong about that, but it's like a Latin family of bat species. And so hence it looks like a Batarang from Batman. And I grew up with DC Comics. And so I just think this is one of the coolest freaking knives of all time. And the fact that it makes that noise. It also has a very subtle blue reminiscent of this one, and aesthetically this is amazing. Okay, we just saw this one in the last section, but this belongs here because this is a very expensive, not quite custom, but practically custom with how much hand finishing they're having to put into these things. But this is an incredibly cool gadget knife for the entire thing come apart like a multi-piece puzzle box. And yeah, this is just exceptionally cool. This is the Avian Knives Atlas. It's got a really good flicking action, although I will say that this is a jabby little flipper tab, but it's also got a really good flick action. And I don't know, can I thumb flick this? Oh, I'm not gonna even try. But it's just an exceptionally cool gadget knife, and I adore that. And then we're gonna come to, one of my absolute favorite knives, period. This is and I think this is actually the most expensive knife in my collection at this point. This is the Peter Rosenti Paisan 2.0, or the Small Paisan. And this is an integral with a hidden stop pin. You can't even tell it's technically in there, but it's just completely vanished. The shape and size of this is just such a mean knife. It fits my hand so freaking well. And it has an insane grind. This comes to 6 thousandths behind the edge. And this is the one that I wanted from like a user perspective. So this is my user Paysan. It's also my only Paysan, but they make, I saw one that has the Coke bottle handles and a mirror polished stonewash blade, and that one is like the dream someday, that if I ever see that across again, I'm going to definitely buy that. But this one has stonewash finish everywhere, and it makes a fantastic user, and so I absolutely carry this knife. It is too good of a knife to pass up carrying, and I don't know. I'm so incredibly happy to have this in my collection. Okay, so these are my like absurd part of my collection, and the thing is I'm about to go to Blade Show. And I don't know what I'm going to get, but there's a couple of like really kind of high-end pieces that I've had my eye on for a while. I did manage to score an early bird ticket thanks to my friend, but I don't know if that's even going to be enough for me to get in. The one thing that I'm really sad about is Surge Knife Co. is bringing their Rook, and that it would have definitely fit into both this section and the previous section because it has Hawk's toggle detent and their Hawk lock. And so I desperately hope I can still get my hands on one of those when he ends up dropping them, but unfortunately Surge couldn't make it to Blade. So that was the thing I was actually going to run. Okay, we're on to the pen section. I think I might even be forgetting something in here. I don't know. Anyway, I also have one on order that I'm super freaking excited. I'll talk about that when I get there. This is the one that started it all. My friend Dan got this for me for a birthday present a while back. And I said I wasn't going to get into pens, and this absolutely got me into pens. This is the classic full width, full length, tactile turn bolt action pen. And it is, the gold standard kind of de facto for what a pen can be in this space. Very, very high end milling, their famous tactile texture pattern here and everything like that. It's just really, really good. The one big problem with these that I find is that they ship with a spring that's just way too strong. So I do have a video about swapping the springs. It makes it way more comfortable, especially with the nice crisp edge you have there, but it does kind of wear on you if you're fidgeting too much. That led me into wanting a smaller pen, so I got the Slim Mini. So this is as thick and as long as it goes, and this is as thin and as small and slim as it goes. Short, there we go, that's the word I want, short. These take the Pilot Mini G2, and so I actually have a video that I'm working on that talks about how to get other refills into this. The problem with the Pilot Mini G2 is that they don't sell the refills on their own. You have to buy the whole pen, and you also, there's been a couple of times where they've threatened to go out of production, and so there aren't very many things that can fit in these, but I have found, I think 4 or 5 different refills and ways of modifying refills that allow you to go in. So that'd be a pretty cool video. I love this pen, but this one trumps it for me. This is their Slim Side Click. It's just, it's such a fun fidget thing, and it just, I don't know. The big thing for me is the way they upgraded this pen clip. This is just such a better design. I love the clip on the new one. This is kind of a perfect mini pen for me. I ordered at the exact same time as that. This is the Trailhead Seasonal that they did. This is, get that to focus. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so this felt extremely Pacific Northwesty with this little Bigfoot right there. The Cerakoting means that the action is a little bit crunchier, but it's still just a tremendously cool pen. I don't know if I'll ever actually carry this for fear of scratching Cerakote, even though that's hard to do. The reality is I just have others that I don't need. This is the most recent one I got from them. This is the Smooth Operator, and so it's pretty funny for a company called Tactile to make a completely smooth pen, but they understand that irony. What I love about this is they've taken the clip even further, and they brought the original clip design to these slim ones. And so instead of having this screw mounted, as nice as this is even nicer in terms of having super deep carry. And so this is a fantastic minimal pen. I will say, as much as I love how smooth this is, I actually do kind of miss the texture. I'd like a little bit of middle ground. We'll talk about it when we get to there. Next up, this is the Irvin Survival Gear Tie Scribe Bolt V2 or something like that. These days they're called Smooth Precision pens, and I haven't experienced anything from Kelvin under the new name, but even back here, they're tremendously smooth. The thing that they do that's special is, of course, that they keep the clip as part of the bolt, and so what I do really love about that is it means that you don't have an additional bolt sticking out of the way, and in the open position, these bolts kind of rub into my hand, and they can be a little bit annoying. But the downside of this is that the entire clip is mounted lower, and it can also kind of catch my hand a little bit. Like sometimes it gets in the way, but still a really, really, really cool pen. This is the Ottmog. What's this officially called? The 42 click pen. So 42 refers to the diameter of this, but this particular version of it slims down here, which makes the clip level with that top part. So it gives you the feel and grip of a full-size pen, which is just more comfortable for writing long times, but it still gives you the slimness of a slim pen. It's a really, really cool combination. I was blown away by this guy's work. The machining on the pen itself is fantastic. The one thing is that I don't like how he does his clips. I haven't done a full video on this yet, but you can just see how incredibly not deep carry this is. I would love to see this continued up further and something closer to like what you find over here. Next up, this is the coolest pen on the market. I don't actually think this is supposed to be mine. I think this was sent as a loaner, but I never heard back from him, and it's been over a year. I haven't actually filmed this video yet, but this is the billet spin cam pen, and this cam mechanism that he does is similar in feel to how bolt action works, but is so much better in every single possible way. And it's also incredibly nerdy in here. So this is gonna be a tremendously cool video. When I finally force myself to do it, I'm just, man, I'm really behind. But this is one of the coolest pens on the market. I cannot recommend it enough. It's it's just so freaking cool. Next up, this is the Big Idea Designs Slim Bolt Action Pen. I got this from a Kickstarter, and but they're for sale now. This is, I think, functionally everything you would ever want out of a bolt action pen. Like if you're only going to own one bolt action pen and you want it to just work for everything, I think this is the one that you can get. It's not like the fanciest, it's not the fanciest feeling pen. So it's not going to feel like the most ultra premium, but from a functional perspective, that's amazing because it's got the fully adjustable internal part that allows you to fit basically every pen refill you could possibly ever imagine. It's got the auto adjusting call at the bottom to reduce wriggle no matter what mechanism you're using. It's got a tremendously smooth and very high placed bolt, so that keeps it out of the way. It also has a tremendously high placed clip, and so the deep carriness here is spectacular. And the thing that really I like about this is that they changed the internal adjustment mechanism to fit different refills into something that uses a tool at the end. There's also a cap that you can swap in that closes this little hole if you don't want to. And so the reason why I really like that is that adjusting the depth in here for different refills is something you only want to happen at refill change time, which is rare. You know, a pen refill, depending on how much you write, can last you anywhere from months to years. And so the old designs where you had to twist something down here meant that it was really easy or too easy to accidentally, especially when you're gripping down here and using this to flip, to accidentally adjust the internal length part. And so this, doing it as a tool that only happens when you want it to happen, as an intentional thing, that's just a way better design. Plus this slim version, just overall fantastic. I wanted to throw in a couple of pencils too here as well. So this is the Rotring 800. This is the top of the line for Rotring. These are somewhere in the $40 to $60 price point. You can even see them as high as $80 if you're, but you can get these much cheaper. I think I paid $36 for this on sale. This is a really cool pencil, and Rotring is a prestige pencil brand. So this is a brass body here that's just been coated. The internals, mechanisms is almost entirely metal for the part that's actually clicking. The big thing here is that it has a retractable hiding tip. Now this is also its biggest downfall. It's the coolest thing about it, but it also means that it does introduce this little bit of rattle at the tip. And the whole thing that Rotring, especially at the 600, which is the same thing as this, just without the retractable, it has this solidity to it that you just won't find in other pencils, especially if they're plastic or something like that. And so having that little bit of rattle kind of reduces that feeling. But it is tremendously cool how it works. And the internal mechanism, cam-wise, actually works very similar to how this works, where you're taking rotational motion and pushing inside up a ramp, which pushes the tip out. Now, I've heard all sorts of mod suggestions on how to get rid of that wiggle, but none of them have worked for me. Anyway, this is still a really, really cool pencil and I wanted to show you guys. And then lastly, if you're into like cool mechanical pencils, especially like the weird over-engineered pencils that you get out of Japan, this is something that's way more affordable. The company's called Platinum, and this is the Pro Use 171. This is the kind of thing where I think this is like maybe 20 bucks, and it just has a lot of really cool features. So instead of having retracting by twist down here, you twist this to retract, and so you can adjust this at any level. So depending on how much of a lead guard that you want exposed, you can have that there, including all the way down to none. But one of the cooler things about this is that it has right here a depth adjustment. So you can twist this to change how much lead comes out each time you click it. It's just an incredibly cool thing. This is a plastic body, but it's this kind of like, I don't know, pearlescent enamel body. It has a really nice solidity to it, and the grip here, I love the grip. So if you're looking for a really high-end mechanical pencil, and especially in that drafting pencil space, or you like the kind of gadgetiness that you get from high-end over-engineered Japanese pencils, I really, really recommend this one, and especially at that affordable price point. Okay, so this next section is some noteworthy tools and EDC gear. None of these are things that I EDC, but you could technically, probably not this one, probably not that one either, but these are things that you could use that way. I keep them around my desk and they're things that I use all the time. This is the Raylite Pineapple Mini in Thai. This pineapple is named after this kind of frag pattern you get here. It gives it great grip. I do find that it can be a little bit of a drag pulling this over your pants, but I aligned the clip with one of the gap spots and that helps a little bit. It has a really nice adjustment. And so I use this on the channel for shining light into things if I can't bounce back light up through. I don't have any other kind of EDC flashlight, and I don't personally need a flashlight often enough on the go to actually carry one, but this is extremely pocketable. Next up, I have these separated because they're magnets at the back, pull them together. This is the single best one and done driver. If you're going to get a single high-end driver, and you, especially if you're going to try and throw something into a pack, this is by far my favorite by a lot. So this is the MK2 driver from Combat Beads / Griffin Co. And what makes it so special and why it's such a good option for a one and done driver is that it holds 3 bits in the back and an additional one on top. So you can have like if you're just doing the 3 in the back, you can do a T6, T8, T10. You're going to cover the vast majority of your knives. You could put the T6 to the front and swap into T15 at the back, and then you cover basically any knife you ever have. But it's just really, really well made. It gives you spectacular grip. Twist. This isn't the kind that like spins indefinitely, but it twists so smoothly and reliably, and it just works so dang well. I love these so much that even though you can do the quick change, and I got pretty good at doing quick change in one-handed, I like having 2 drivers if I end up having to disassemble a knife that uses both a T6 and a T8. I like not having to swap the bits out, and so I actually just got a second one of these, and I got them in a different colorway intentionally so that I would be able to remember as I go which one's which, but they also just, it's nice to have another one. Especially if you're gonna throw one in like a bag. This here is the stubby driver. This, if you're gonna buy a stubby driver, you can also get one that has Torx bits in it. So might as well do that. There's a version that doesn't have this back part, but it doesn't rotate or anything, so it doesn't reduce that kind of rigidity that you have. And this is just the perfect way to palm it if you're trying to need a captive pivot being held in place when you undo stuff. So 100% need one of these in your collection. I still use these all the time. These are the iFixit drivers. I've had these for a very long time because I've been into kind of small gadget repair for a long time. And so that iFixit is just a legend in that space for their right to repair crusade that they do. If you need a precision bit driver, and so if you like working with these little 4mm precision bits, this really is about as good as you're going to get until you get into maybe, there's like one place that does a high-end precision bit driver, and it's not going to be better than this. It's just going to be different than this. So this, for the price point, these work so dang well. I have like 4 of these. I also have 2 of these. I don't use this very often, but this is, if you want a full-size driver, like if you need to be able to, like if you're working on, and this doesn't happen that often, but if you're working on something where you need to be able to put in a lot of torque sometimes, but still have really precise motions other times, this is a great version for that. But these days, now that I have this, if I'm working on something that needs a lot of torque and he's using the standard 1/4" bits, I just grab these. Next up, we've got 2 different Knipex micro doohickeys. So the Knipex is a German brand, and they make extremely well made everything, like pliers, screwdrivers, tweezery type things. The big difference between the Raptor line, and I don't remember exactly what they call this, but this is their parallel jaw plier, is this. So when you open a normal set of pliers, this is how the jaw moves, right? And then they have these wonderful little grips here that are very carefully engineered and designed how they're laid out. It's a weird kind of placement, but this is meant for gripping onto the corners of a bolt or onto like a pipe. So these are meant for things like that, and they give such good traction, but those little teeth will also mar things up. And so a lot of times on knives, what you really want is non-toothed flat pliers that move parallel to each other. And this is one of the genius things that they did here, is that this cam mechanism right here means that this rotational motion means a linear motion in this direction. And so you can apply squeezing pressure like you would in like a vice jaw. And that just, I don't know, there's lots of cases where that just works so much better, that you aren't applying this kind of torquing rotational motion, but instead of linear squeeze. And like I said, having non-marring, no teeth here, it's just, I don't know, it's great. And these things, I use them all the freaking time. It's just very, very common that I end up having to pick these up off my desk. And they are small enough that some people throw these into a fifth pocket. I don't personally do that. Lastly, we've got the Ever Ratchet. This is the original. This is from Gear Infusion. I did a whole deep dive video on this and the newer version of this, the Ever Ratchet Clip, I think they call it. And I did a giveaway on these. There's just incredible value for the money. You pack a lot of utility into a little very small space, and the entire thing is still wildly affordable, under 30 bucks. And then lastly, in that kind of direction, this is TRM. They make these little beverage utility tools, BUTs. This particular one is called El Chupacabra, or Capra, because it's a cap lifter. But anyway, I just think it's adorable looking, and it also is a really, really good bottle opener. Now, I don't talk about fidgets very much on this channel, but I am a fidgeter, had definitely strong ADHD brain, and I love tactile things. I've said many times in my videos that one of the things that got me into knives is their clicky mechanical motion, so this is a natural fit for me, especially if I'm trying to play with something and I don't want to have a sharp edge on it. I don't have a whole lot, but they're all pretty high-end except for this. I'll just get this out of the way. This is one of those things that costs like 30 cents. It is a marble inside a tube that was originally meant to be a Chinese finger trap, and it's just tremendously fun to slide this back and forth. So if you want a super low and budget-wise fidget, ooh, that's fun. Okay, my actual favorite day-to-day is this one. This is the Mackie Studios CP3. This one is, in particular, is a partnership with ATS, which I'm told is some kind of spinner brand, but I don't, that's what that's about, but I don't know that space. This is a 3-panel design and super duper slim, has just enough traction here, and I really, really like this for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's not stuck together, which expands the ways I can play with it, but it does have a track, and so it's a lot easier to play with this in a way that's not worried about it falling on the ground. It has a lot of clicks to it, really pretty strong magnets, nice solid click, but you can also move it in a much more quiet way. But the fact that this isn't connected means that there's all sorts of ways that I find myself playing with this that involve like kind of intentionally popping these out. I like kind of going like this and clicking it out of its groove, but letting it pop back in. I can really, really annoy people with this one, just how into it I get. I tend to sit there and kind of do like this thing. Oh, it just feels really fun. Anyway, there's a newer, thicker version of this where these don't come off, and I don't like it for the thickness, and I don't like it for the fact that they don't come off. But if you really hate the idea of your magnets, your slider bits coming apart, maybe you'd want that version. That's a good segue into these. These are both by Magnus. He's a dude in, I think, New Zealand, if I remember correctly. I think it's New Zealand, not Australia. Anyway, he's over there, and he makes exceptionally high-end pieces, but these are the kind that definitely come apart. He has a lot of different designs, and they sometimes they look the same as each other. And in fact, he kind of merges some designs. So this one is actually called the Ridge. It's not like the X. He has a couple other ones, but this one's called the Ridge. It's one of the older ones. It's also one of the thicker ones. But these style, what they do, they've got plates. This is from the era when these were glued in. These days, you'll get them with little screws right there, so they're replaceable. But he has, and oh, these are zirconium plates, but he also did brass. He's done nylon, or I think Teflon. And these are the kind that, like, they, because they're not held together in any kind of way, you can do fancier stuff, like make them twirl around. And if you see people that are like really talented at it, they can make these twirl around in their hands. I'm not that talented with it, but I like the way that you can kind of wiggle these back and forth in some fun ways, despite the fact they don't have a track. But they also make such a good loud snap. The biggest thing for me is that they just feel really, really nice in your hand. They a lot of them have these little grooves for your thumb to sit into that just make them feel like a worry stone. Ooh. really loud snaps on this one. Some of the other ones, like the less thick and the less three-dimensional they are, the weaker magnets he puts in. So, because you need you need more of a grip kind of surface in order to be able to handle these bigger magnets. So they're not all quite as loud as this. This one particular one is called the Crab. There's a King Crab version now. Anyway, he makes tremendously cool stuff. He also makes a wildly cool, unique mechanism in a pen. I didn't end up getting one of those, but I would love to try one of those at some point. I forget what he calls that. And he is actually working on knives these days. Man, he's one of those people that's just like an experimenter, and I love his creativity. I love his enthusiasm, and I love the products he makes. So that's really cool. And then lastly, what we have here, this is a freaking weirdo. I love this to death. I bought this off Left EDC for dirt cheap. Otherwise, I probably would never spend it because I think this is like a $250, $300 spinner. But this is just so wildly complicated. So on these ends, there's these little tiny clicks. The way this is being done, though, is there's a little nylon ball that's being held on these posts, and it's bumping into detents that are carved in various angles around the spot. So like this top part that's basically the sound of the ball popping into those spots, and it has a really satisfying click to it, but it's done in a way where you can take this thing apart and take those little pillars out, and then it becomes just a freeform spinner. And this will spin for like 2 whole minutes. It's kind of wild. The reason it has these little screws on here is that you can actually take this whole thing apart and turn this just into a spinner top, like if you want to turn it and spin it like that. But then we get to this part, and it's just stupidly complicated. I find that very, very funny. So this, there's the same kind of concept of nylon balls popping in and out of holes is what makes these things slide open. But you can actually take those out as well. So you could make one side of this or both sides of this just free slide if you wanted. And then on this version, this is the GV2. I think I might have even missed the name of this. This is the Risha Shock Bomb 2.0. And the 2.0, they added these. And so there's a little tiny magnet in there that corresponds to these little bean pills having a magnet in them that makes these slide up and down. And depending on how you do it, it's either a soft, smooth transition or kind of a click into place. Also, one of these, I think, intentionally has a smoother, a lighter magnet than the other because there's a different tactile sensation here. And so this is the thing that I don't sit here and play with this all that often. But the big thing is, this looks like a freaking lightsaber, and it just looks like a crazy gadget contraption thing. And I just am blown away by how many intricate individual parts are in this. Like every single one of these is a custom thing. This has a little tiny O-ring inside. Actually, these little vents right here, there's the way they're achieving that look is by there being a completely milled out inside and an additional piece that's screwed in on the inside that adds as like a back plate. It's just, there's like 100 little parts in this, and they're all so precisely done. And I just love how overly complicated this is. Kevin hated this, but I adore it. Last up, we have my entire watch collection of one. So I hyper shopped watches for a good 4.5, 5 years before settling on this one. And I have worn it every single day since. It's been probably 6 years now, and I've been completely satisfied. I'm able to stay at one because this meets all of my needs. I adore this to death. This is a Longines flagship gent. If you want the specific model number, it is 4.874.4.72.2. It originally came on a black croc strap. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, this is, for me, a big part of it is I wanted simplistic, clean face, and I wanted something that was small and slim. I'm a small guy, I have narrow wrists, and so a lot of the watches that you can find, especially when I was buying this, they're all jumbo size, and they just look ridiculous on my wrist. The other thing is I wear a lot of button-down shirts, and it's difficult for me to fit watches underneath the sleeve. So it's really important to me that this be thin, and this thing is wildly thin, only 8 millimeters thick, and that's hard to find on an automatic watch. It's even harder to find on an automatic watch with a display back, because usually if you find anything that's that thin, it's going to have a solid panel, but I personally need to be able to watch those tiny little things move. If you look at this, the movement here, L619.2, that's just their in-house branding of a modified ETA 2892-2. So there's nothing special going on there. They've just put Longines on the rotor and add some Geneva stripes. Yeah, but I just adore this watching this movement go. It's just, I love it to death. The 2892-2 obviously has the hacking seconds, which I really, really like for setting. And also has the quick adjust for the date, so you can spin down. Let's go to the strap. So this strap, unfortunately, they are no longer in business, but this strap I had custom made for me by Equus Leather. It's a guy named Charlie in the UK. such a dream of a guy, so easy to work with, such a warm, friendly person, and so freaking talented. I got this, like I said, I tend to find that watch straps just are too big for me, even on the smallest one. And I also wanted something very specific, and I also like supporting leathercraft hand maker type people. And so I got this custom made in Sedgwick bridle leather. This originally started off as hazel, but is very much darkened over time. I love that. And then here, this is an RHD deployant clasp. And so this is made in the US, and it's my favorite deployant clasp. It has a thick enough spot up here so that, you know, if you go for one of the modern watch strap styles that is a little bit thicker and a little bit more padded, it'll still fit. You can see that on this, there's plenty of room. I could even have a thicker clasp here, but it's the kind of thing that has a double-sided clasp, and it just snaps in so well. I love this thing to death. It works fantastically. And so overall, this is the watch that I wear every single day, and I could not be happier with it. I don't know if I will ever buy another watch, but this is my one and done, and it has been successfully a one and done for a good 6 years now. So somehow I've managed to not get into watches by first getting really into watches and hyper shopping this. So that's it. That's my entire collection. I am confident I missed things. I'm confident I forgot to pull things out of the drawer even after doing all of the planning. And I didn't know what to hold here in this last little farewell bit, so this is one of my stickers. Yeah. Thank you guys for spending 2 whole freaking years with me. I still can't believe it's been 2 years. That is absolutely wild. I do expect that my collection will markedly change in the future. I definitely want to narrow some parts down and expand some parts and drastically shrink some other parts. But overall, this has just been tremendously fun getting to nerd out with everyone for this whole time. I've learned so much, and I love getting to share the things I learn with others. So yeah, thank you all for nerding out with me. I'll catch you guys next time.